Chapter 1695, The Trade in the Thunderbolt Island. Chapter 1695, The Trade in the Thunderbolt Island. For the next 100 years, I will stay in the Thunderbolt Island. If your side were to agree to my conditions, we will do the trade in the Thunderbolt Island. If your side were to not give me an answer after 100 years, then this genius of yours will be gone. Sir God Qianlong, go back and think carefully. I shall take my leave now. Jian Wushuang's hearty voice resounded across the universe. After that, his body moved and he left in front of Sir God Qianlong. Sir God Qianlong looked on as Jian Wushuang left, and he had no intention of stopping him. He had no choice. Even if he wanted to stop him, he could not do so. In order to take care of Jian Wushuang this time around, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had sent out a powerful lineup. Even though an almighty like him had shown up personally, they were still unable to do anything to Jian Wushuang. Hence, even if the Soaring Heaven King Palace wished to hire other almighties with stronger abilities to kill Jian Wushuang, it would definitely be too late. This time around, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had suffered an unexpected failure. Sir God Qianlong clenched both his fists tightly. However, he was filled with helplessness. The Sanctuary Alliance, powerhouses from everywhere, as well as many experts who traveled alone, were all waiting in anticipation for the Soaring Heaven King Palace and the lineage of Star to clash head-on with one another. In particular, when they knew that Jian Wushuang's abilities had risen greatly and that he had killed 9 top chaotic real gods in one go, they had become even more interested. All of them were waiting eagerly for the news. In no time, news started to spread. Firstly, it was real god Han Quan and real god Jiugong arriving at the same time and then teaming up to kill Jian Wushuang. In the end, they were defeated by Jian Wushuang. After that, Sir God Qianlong, one of the almighties of the Soaring Heaven King Palace, appeared personally and fought an intense battle with Jian Wushuang head-on. In the end, he was fatally wounded by Jian Wushuang, and real god Han Quan was also suppressed by Jian Wushuang right away. At the very end, Sir God Qianlong discussed some terms with Jian Wushuang as he had no choice. Jian Wushuang had then made exorbitant demands by bringing up conditions that were completely unacceptable. After that news was made public, the whole Sanctuary Alliance was in an uproar. They were also in shock and disbelief. Almost everyone had thought that the Soaring Heaven King Palace and the lineage of Star would clash head-on this time around. Moreover, Jian Wushuang would no doubt be the main character of this matter. Moreover, there were also people who pitted Jian Wushuang all the while. However, what happened in the end? From the start to the end, no one from the lineage of Star showed up. It was only Jian Wushuang himself. Just by himself, he had single-handedly made the powerful lineup that was sent out by the Soaring Heaven King Palace, including the Almighty helpless. On the contrary, they had suffered huge losses in Jian Wushuang's hands. In no time, countless people were shocked by this matter. That Jian Wushuang is merely an eternal real god. However, he is still able to fight with an almighty head-on and even wound him fatally. This is really unbelievable. Too frightening. This Jian Wushuang is too frightening. If we purely use words like genius and demon to describe him, he would still be indescribable. After all, even demons and monsters are not as frightening as him. Inverse cultivator. This is an inverse cultivator. Many experts in the Sanctuary Alliance knew how shocking Jian Wushuang's speed of emergence was. It should be known that more than 20,000 years ago, when Wu Bei's cave appeared, the Jian Wushuang then was only a universe god. Hence, he was just a little kid. However, in a short 20,000 years, he had become an overlord. That's right, he had become an overlord. His current abilities had already achieved the level of an almighty, and in the eternal chaotic world, almighties were considered overlords. Of course, at the same time that everyone was shocked about Jian Wushuang's abilities, all the powerhouses as well as experts who traveled alone within the Sanctuary Alliance were laughing at the Soaring Heaven King Palace. The Soaring Heaven King Palace had always been unreasonable. Moreover, many powerhouses and experts had developed a grudge against the Soaring Heaven King Palace before. However, due to the Soaring Heaven King Palace's abilities, They only dared to be furious but did not say anything. However, this time round, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had completely thrown their reputation away. They had thrown so much of their reputation away that they had been reduced to a joke. They had sent out such a powerful lineup. There were tens of chaotic real gods, which included real god Han Quan and real god Jiugong, who were experts at the front of the real god ranking list. Moreover, even an almighty had come personally. However, their aim was merely to kill a real god. The real god had almost no help from anyone, and he relied purely on himself. In the end, he slaughtered the Soaring Heaven King Palace to the point that they were in a hideous mess and were too tragic to look at. Thus, what else could they be besides a joke? Moreover, the Soaring Heaven King Palace themselves had asked for the joke. Jian Wushuang had made the video of the conversation between him and real god Ziyi public. It was obvious that the Soaring Heaven King Palace had always been the one making trouble, and Jian Wushuang had merely retaliated all the way in order to protect himself. Furthermore, for the great battle this time round, in order to show their power, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had taken the initiative to spread the news. As such, it had resulted in such a huge commotion. At that moment, they were defeated and had lost their reputation. Apart from blaming themselves, they could not blame anyone else. In addition, even though the Soaring Heaven King Palace had thrown their reputation away, they had still not completely thrown all their face away. After all, real god Han Quan was still in Jian Wushuang's hands, and the conditions that Jian Wushuang had brought up were made public as well. At that moment, everyone was excited as to how the Soaring Heaven King Palace would respond. Would they agree or reject his conditions? The Soaring Heaven King Palace then had an extremely gloomy atmosphere. Many higher-ups of the Soaring Heaven King Palace were naturally enraged. However, they could only be enraged. Such a matter had already occurred and their reputation had been totally thrown away. They even had no way to find trouble with the lineage of Star. After all, for this matter, they were in the wrong. Currently, what they needed to do was to do their best to reduce the losses of the Soaring Heaven King Palace. For their losses, the first thing to do was naturally to bring real god Han Quan back. Not long after Jian Wushuang had returned to the Thunderbolt Island, the Soaring Heaven King Palace sent a message to him saying that they accepted the 3 conditions that he had brought up. At a spacious ground in the Thunderbolt Island. The open area did not have any opportunities. Moreover, on normal days, no one would stay in this open area. However, at present, innumerous experts had come to this open area. In the whole of Thunderbolt Island, apart from some experts who were completely immersed in the comprehension of the opportunities, more than 90% of the experts had come to the open area. This included a few interested almighties who had appeared in the void near the open area. This was because on the very day, the Soaring Heaven King Palace would complete their trade with Jian Wushuang on the open area. At the middle of the open space, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had tens of experts on their side, and Sir God Qianlian had also appeared personally, just like before. As for Jian Wushuang, he was also accompanied by some experts from the lineage of Star. These are the doctrine gems and demon cores that you wanted. In addition, there are also 2 tokens of the Fairy Palace's legacy, and each of them contains 250 years of training time. Please do a check yourself. Sir God Qianlian's expression was ice cold, and he took out a Qian Kuan ring. Jian Wushuang took the Qian Kuan ring. After using his soul power to scan it, he smiled and nodded his head. After that, he waved his hands and released real god Han Quan, who had been suppressed in the Blood Mountain Sword. Sir God Qianlan, this is a good trade. Jian Wushuang laughed heartily. Don't be arrogant. The Soaring Heaven King Palace will not let this matter go just like that. Sir God Qianlan said in a cold voice. I will be waiting. Jian Wushuang was still laughing like before. Chapter 1696, First Place on Real God Ranking List. Chapter 1696, First Place on Real God Ranking List. The curtain descended for the highly anticipated battle between Soaring Heaven King Palace and Lineage of Star after the deal on Thunderbolt Island. In the battle, not only did Soaring Heaven King Palace suffer heavy losses, they became a laughingstock. As for Jian Wushuang, he had gained a complete victory. Especially the 100,000 doctrine gems, demons' cores, and 500 years of cultivation time in Fairy Palace. Everyone was envious. On Thunderbolt Island, Jian Wushuang gathered with many real gods of lineage of star. Real God Duan Yen, real God Huan Yu, thank you for your help in the 8th layer. This small gift is just a token of gratitude, of my respect. Jian Wushuang took out 2 Qian Kuan rings. This, real God Duan Yen creased his eyebrows. He hesitated because the 2 of them actually hadn't helped much during the battle. Jian Wushuang had defeated Soaring Heaven King Palace alone. As Jian Wushuang has offered it, we shall accept it. After all, he received quite an abundant reward from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Real God Huan Yu accepted it straight away. That's true. Real God Duan Yen beamed with joy and accepted it as well. Everyone else too. Jian Wushuang took out some other Qian Kuan rings for every expert from Lineage of Star. The benefits that he had gotten from Soaring Heaven King Palace were shockingly great. It was only right and proper that he shared some with the experts in Lineage of Star. After all, when he was in the Dark Region, the experts in Lineage of Star had helped to look for him. Everyone took the Qian Kuan rings and skimmed through with their consciousness. They were all surprised. It was obvious that Jian Wushuang's small gift was priceless. After everyone had left, Jian Wushuang took out a communication token to contact Hall Master Yuan. How did it go? Hall Master Yuan had sent a message long ago. It went well. Soaring Heaven King Palace gave me the things. Jian Wushuang smiled. I knew it. Hall Master Yuan wasn't surprised. Although the things that you asked for are priceless, they are nothing to real God Han Quan. Plus, there are so many people who knew that you imprisoned real God Han Quan. If Soaring Heaven King Palace were to not take out those things willingly, the experts under their command would definitely be discouragingly disappointed. True, Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. This time, you have gained abundantly. But honestly speaking, it was too risky. Luckily, everything went well. Otherwise, Hall Master Yuan sighed. I never thought Soaring Heaven King Palace would want me dead so badly. To fight me, just a real god, they even sent an almighty. They are very cruel, Jian Wushuang said. Soaring Heaven King Palace did overdo it this time. It is a little unusual, Hall Master Yuan said, then he shook his head. Don't bother with them. You only need to be careful with Soaring Heaven King Palace in the future. Oh yeah, Real God ranking list has been updated. You haven't seen it yet, right? They changed it so quickly? Jian Wushuang was shocked. It was supposed to be changed after a while. But because of you, Vientiane Tower changed it ahead of time. After all, your sudden rise caused a great impact to Real God ranking list. Hall Master Yuan paused and continued. Do you know which rank you are at on the new Real God ranking list? Should be in the top 3, I'm guessing. Jian Wushuang smiled. You're in top 3 and in the first place, Hall Master Yuan said. The first place on Real God ranking list? Jian Wushuang was surprised. He knew that he would definitely be in the top 3 and he definitely could be in second place if not mistaken. However, he had never thought of being the first place on Real God ranking list. After all, he had seen Real God ranking list and he also knew the fighting results of the first placed on Real God ranking list. Although he had had great results during his visit to the 8th lair and he had even injured Sir God Qianlan, it was because he had used many trump cards and Sir God Qianlan hadn't managed to perform any techniques in time. However, it didn't mean he was stronger than Sir God Qianlan. On the contrary, if they were to fight with their all, Sir God Qianlan might possibly have the upper hand. As for the previous first placed on Real God ranking list, it was in a situation where both parties were giving their all. He had suppressed an almighty. In terms of fighting results, he was stronger by 1 notch than Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang didn't think that he could move to the top of Real God ranking list, but in the end, he was wrong. Between Real God and Almighty, the difference is vast. There are many experts on Real God ranking list but who could be evenly matched with an almighty besides Real God Fa Mie who was in the first place previously. He fought against an almighty before. In terms of fighting result, he isn't weaker than you. But Vientiane Tower listed you in the first place before real God Fa due to your potential. Hall Master Yuan smiled. Real God Fa Pi became chaotic real God for very long. His power has reached a bottleneck. Unless he becomes an almighty, it is impossible for him to increase his power. On the other hand, you are different. You are an inverse cultivator and your potential is much higher than real God Fa Mies. Your space to grow on the stage as real God is still terrifying huge. Forget about the rest. As soon as you break through and become chaotic real God, it will be an easy task to win against Fa Mie. I see, Jian Wushuang understood. First place on Real God ranking list. Not long ago, he was in the first place on Universe God ranking list. Then, he had suddenly risen abruptly to a brand new level with such short notice. With the encounter of first place on Universe God ranking list, Jian Wushuang didn't feel anything about being the first place of Real God ranking list. An inverse cultivator isn't someone an ordinary cultivator could compare to. Any inverse cultivator, no matter how low his comprehension of power of Heaven Wei is, as long as he reaches the level of stage 3 ultimate real God, the level of a chaotic real God, he could easily become the first place in Real God ranking list, Jian Wushuang said in silence. Just like Real God Wu Bei, he was also on the first place of Real God ranking list when he was an ultimate real God. The only difference was that Jian Wushuang was only a stage 2 ultimate real God while Real God Wu Bei only became number 1 when he was at stage 3. In terms of power, I am slightly weaker than Real God Wu Bei. Jian Wushuang knew it clearly. Jian Wushuang, make a plan to make a trip back to Lineage of Star, Hall Master Yuan suddenly said. Return to Lineage of Star? Jian Wushuang thought and he nodded, sure. When are you planning? Hall Master Yuan asked closely. After some time, I guess. I have just gotten 500 years of cultivation time from Soaring Heaven King Palace and many demon cores. These are extremely useful to me, Jian Wushuang said. Okay then. Go ahead and cultivate. Send me a message when you want to return, Hall Master Yuan said. All right, Jian Wushuang nodded. Then he cut off the connection with Hall Master Yuan. Then Jian Wushuang naturally had to utilize the resources that he had obtained from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Chapter 1697, Returning to the Lineage of Star. Chapter 1697, Returning to the Lineage of Star. Thunderbolt Island, Space-Time Fairy Palace. Jian Wushuang was sitting down calmly with his legs crossed in the middle of the 27 picture scrolls. Previously in the standalone space, when I was comprehending the 7-star picture, I saw the process of the birth of a constellation to its destruction. Due to that, my level of comprehension of the space-time doctrine and reincarnation doctrine rose greatly. Currently, I have a great amount of training time in the Fairy Palace. Hence, I must use it properly to get my comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei to achieve a whole new level in the shortest amount of time. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and slowly closed his eyes after that. The comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei would become more difficult as one continued to make progress and one picture scroll would require tens of years of comprehension. However, Jian Wushuang was very patient. Moreover, the most important thing was that he had a great amount of training time in the Fairy Palace. A total of 500 years was enough for him to spend it freely. Time continued to pass as Jian Wushuang was in a state of comprehension. In a flash, 380 years had passed. During the 380 years, Jian Wushuang spent 120 years in the Space-Time Fairy Palace. As for the remaining 260 years, he spent it in the Reincarnation Fairy Palace. During the comprehension in the 380 years, be it his comprehension of the space-time doctrine or the reincarnation doctrine, both of them advanced greatly and he then possessed the abilities to clear the 6th level of the Doctrine Palace. Moreover, he was also extremely close to the 7th level and he could be said to be only one step away. However, it was extremely difficult to get past that step. After all, the 7th level of the Doctrine Palace was the standard of an almighty. For a chaotic real God to make a breakthrough to become an almighty, The first requirement was for his comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei to achieve the standard needed to clear the 7th level of the Doctrine Palace. However, across many years, this requirement had stumped many real gods. Jian Wushuang had also come across a bottleneck at that stage. In order to make it past the bottleneck, it would be pointless for him to rely on comprehension in the Fairy Palace. Instead, he could only rely on other opportunities. As such, he did not use the remaining 120 years of training time in the Fairy Palace. In a dark standalone space within the Thunderbolt Island. Swish! Swish! All of a sudden, 2 brilliant rays of golden light lit up abruptly and pierced the void, leaving behind 2 long golden tails that looked like comets. Moreover, for the places that they passed through, the space was completely torn into pieces. Buzz! Buzz! 2 rays of golden light shone fiercely and revealed themselves beside Jian Wushuang after appearing beside him. It was 2 Hongjun golden swords. I can already use 2 Hongjun golden swords proficiently. Moreover, be it speed or power, these 2 Hongjun golden swords have made a huge improvement in those 2 areas. By combining these 2 facts, I am definitely be more than 10 times more powerful compared to back then when I fought with Sir God Qianlan. If the current me were to fight with Sir God Qianlan again, even if he were to exert all his strength and not care about anything else, I would have absolute confidence that I would be able to suppress him with the 2 Hongjun golden swords. Jian Wushuang's eyes shone brilliantly and he was over the moon. When he had fought with Sir God Qianlan, be it his comprehension of the space-time doctrine or reincarnation doctrine, both of them had stopped at the standard to clear the 5th level of the Doctrine Palace. However, at that moment, his comprehension of the 2 powers of Heaven Wei had already achieved the top of the 6th level of the Doctrine Palace. Since Jian Wushuang's comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei had improved by so much, the abilities that he possessed had naturally increased as well. Thus, the unique skills, secret skills and many other techniques that he used would naturally be more powerful. When comparing his combined abilities, he was indeed more than 10 times stronger than before. This was only him improving from the 5th level to the 6th level of the Doctrine Palace. If he were to take another step forward in the future, such that his comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei was to achieve the standard needed to clear the 7th level of the Doctrine Palace, that would be the real qualitative change. His abilities as a whole would rise even more. The current me can suppress Sir God Qianlan head-on with 2 Hongjun golden swords. However, if my comprehension of the space-time doctrine was to take another step forward and achieve the standard needed to clear the 7th level of the Doctrine Palace, the Hongjun golden swords would be countless times stronger than they are now when I use them. At that time, by relying on the Hongjun golden swords, probably no one among the Sir Gods could be my opponent. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly and he was filled with anticipation. Since his comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei had come across a bottleneck, it would be meaningless for him to continue to stay in the Thunderbolt Island to train. Hence, he returned to the lineage of Star straight away. Purple Moon Sanctuary, Starland. The gorgeous, gigantic Milky Way which covered the whole sky was suspended high up in the air. An ancient and exquisite silver spaceship from the outside world had appeared at the edge of the Milky Way. Jian Wushuang, who wore a blood robe and was carrying a long sword on his back, walked down from the spaceship alone. After that, he went to the interior of the Milky Way. The news of his return was only told to Hall Master Yuan alone. Moreover, he also told Hall Master Yuan to not make it public. Therefore, the lineage of Star was still extremely peaceful, just like before. Jian Wushuang was walking forward on the Milky Way slowly. His steps were slow and he headed deep inside step by step. Along the way, Jian Wushuang would occasionally see some meta beasts which were playing wantonly in the void as well as some lineage of Star's disciples catching them. The lineage of Star has not changed at all, Jian Wushuang laughed. However, all of a sudden, he recalled something. I left the lineage of Star for thousands of years ago. Now I've returned, I still have many impressions of the lineage of Star. However, I left my hometown for tens of thousands of years. Jian Wushuang murmured, and his eyes revealed an expression of recollection. His hometown, the Green Fire World. That was the place where he was born and raised. That was his root. Over there were also many of his close ones, brothers and good friends. No matter what reputation he would create for himself in the eternal chaotic world, and no matter how powerful he would become in the future, he would definitely not forget about that place. After being separated for tens of thousands of years, he had no idea how his hometown was doing at that moment. Moreover, there was also the giant battlefield that his hometown was near. The battlefield was unimaginably queer, and there was a high possibility that it was a battlefield of the ancient past. Furthermore, it also contained a great number of secrets. I shall return to my hometown after another period of time, when I really need to relax, Jian Wushuang thought. In no time, Jian Wushuang arrived at the base of the lineage of Star. Although Jian Wushuang had seen many disciples of the lineage of Star, he did not show himself. Instead, he headed to the constellation that Hall Master Yuan was at directly. Within a cave which was completely made of special gems. Didn't you say that you have had a total of 500 years of training time in the Fairy Palace? I thought that you would only return after using up all your training time. Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang while laughing. My comprehension of the power of Heaven Wei has come across a bottleneck, and I will not be able to get past it by relying on the Fairy Palace, Jian Wushuang said helplessly. Is that so? Hall Master Yuan raised his eyebrows. If that's the case, your abilities will have definitely risen considerably as compared to before. Am I right? Jian Wushuang laughed, and he did not comment. All right, I shall not ask too much. Let's get down to business. I have called you back this time around for a certain matter. Hall Master Yuan prepared to tell Jian Wushuang about the matter. Jian Wushuang listened closely. Chapter 1698 Hall Master. Chapter 1698 Hall Master. Don't worry, it's a good thing. Hall Master Yuan smiled. When you reached the fighting power of eternal real God, you naturally became one of the Deacon Elderlies in lineage of Star. Then, you injured Sir God Qianlong. In terms of power, you should not be any weaker than an ordinary Almighty. According to the rules in lineage of Star, only one with fighting power of an Almighty can become a Hall Master. Hall Master? Jian Wushuang was surprised. In lineage of Star, the highest position is naturally Palace Master, followed by the 3 Hall Masters. Among the 3 Hall Masters, besides myself, the other 2 are Almighties, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang's face grew strange when he heard that. The fighting power of an Almighty could qualify one to become Hall Master, but Hall Master Yuan obviously wasn't an Almighty. Hall Master Yuan seemed to see Jian Wushuang's thoughts. He said, "Don't look at me like that. I can become Hall Master because of a unique factor. You'll find out about it later on." Jian Wushuang shrugged but didn't ask. Return to Sword Star and get ready. After some time, I will throw a banquet for you. The birth of a new Hall Master is very meaningful to lineage of Star. We can't take this lightly. I'll have all the experts of lineage of Star to hurry their journey back to participate in the banquet. Then I will announce it personally, Hall Master Yuan said. All right, Jian Wushuang nodded and didn't reject. Yeah, Lei Chao had been wandering in the 6th lair. Will he return? I'm not sure for now, but the possibility isn't high, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang was quiet. Then he returned to Sword Star. There wasn't much that had changed on Sword Star. All the maidservants were still there, but Qiu Yu had left lineage of Star a while back to wander outside. Jian Wushuang stayed in Sword Star as he waited. For the rest of the time, there were experts of lineage of Star coming back one after another. Some came back from Thunderbolt Island, some came back from the 8th lair, and there were some that come back from all over Eternal Chaotic World. Just like Hall Master Yuan had described, the birth of a new Hall Master was a major event to lineage of Star. After all, an Almighty was extremely important to any force in Eternal Chaotic World and was one of the people to count on. Every extra person would increase the overall power tremendously. Lineage of Star, as one of the great forces in Eternal Chaotic World, had 3 Almighties in commanding positions previously, but now there were 4. Regardless of if it was experts of real god level or disciples of universe god level in lineage of star, no one wasn't thrilled when they found out about the news. In the blink of an eye, a month's time had passed. The banquet started as usual. The higher-ups in lineage of star, besides those who couldn't rush back in short notice, almost all of them were present. The banquet was extremely busy and there were a few lofty thrones arranged side by side. Besides Jian Wushuang and Hall Master Yuan, there were another 2 figures seated there. Jian Wushuang, let me introduce. This is Sir God Shi Yun, who is a big-name figure in Sanctuary Alliance, Hall Master Yuan said as he pointed at a handsome, middle-aged man who kept short hair with great height and powerful build. Big-name figure? Don't listen to him. Jian Wushuang, I'm Ye Yun. You can call me by my name or just call me Hall Master Ye Yun. As for Sir God Shi Yun, it's just a title, the tall and sturdy middle-aged man, Ye Yun, said with a hearty smile. Greetings, Hall Master Ye Yun. Jian Wushuang behaved humbly. He knew long ago that besides Hall Master Yuan, there had been another 2 Hall Masters in lineage of star. However, the other 2 Hall Masters had never involved themselves with worldly affairs. Hence, he only saw them that day. This is Hall Master Gu Exin. The others refer to her as Sir God Gu Exin, Hall Master Yuan said. Hall Master Gu Exin, Jian Wushuang greeted humbly. Greetings, the extremely enchanting woman, who looked like a fairy from a painting, Hall Master Gu Exin said. Her voice was captivating too. In eternal chaotic world, forget about the almighties, even many real gods have titles. Jian Wushuang, you have the fighting power of an almighty now. Are you not giving yourself one? Title? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Ye Yun looked towards him. Most experts had titles that belonged to them. Jian Wushuang had met many real gods that had their own titles. The same went for the almighties. The titles were many and varied but all had their unique points. Some named themselves according to the divine weapon that they were good with, or unique skill, or doctrine that they comprehended. Some named themselves casually. A long time ago, when I was still back in my hometown, I was pathetically weak but I still received the title of Sword Emperor, Jian Wushuang smiled. Sword Emperor? The surrounding 3 Hall Masters exchanged a look and nodded faintly. The title was given by oneself casually. It was as well without it as with it. Jian Wushuang was good with swords and he had the fighting power of a Sir God. It was normal that he would be referred to as Sword Emperor. The banquet was extremely crowded and busy. There were many real gods that got up to toast Jian Wushuang occasionally. After all, the main focus of the banquet was Jian Wushuang. During the banquet, Jian Wushuang was chatting casually with the 3 Hall Masters next to him. They had set up prohibitions around them so the real gods beneath couldn't listen to the content of their conversations. Jian Wushuang, I heard that you made Soaring Heaven King Palace suffer a great loss and you gained an abundant benefit from them? Hall Master Ye Yun looked at him. It did happen, Jian Wushuang nodded. Ha, well done. Soaring Heaven King Palace has always been aggressive and barbaric. I was upset with them long ago. There was a chilly gleam in Hall Master Ye Yun's eyes. Oh! Jian Wushuang looked at Hall Master Ye Yun in shock. Jian Wushuang, you might not know this but Hall Master Ye Yun once had an issue with Soaring Heaven King Palace. He once fought against Soaring Heaven King Palace but then he suffered a minor loss. This time, you vented his grievance on his behalf, Hall Master Yuan said. I see, Jian Wushuang understood. Humph. Soaring Heaven King Palace looked down their noses down at everyone and it is a common sight. Jian Wushuang, if you fight Soaring Heaven King Palace again in the future, show no mercy. Go ahead and kill them directly, Hall Master Ye Yun said. Actually, I'm curious. Soaring Heaven King Palace suffered such a great loss this time. Theoretically, they should be raging with anger but why didn't they dare to fight Lineage of Star head-on? With Soaring Heaven King Palace's power, they totally have the capital to start a war with Lineage of Star? Jian Wushuang asked confusedly. He had wanted to ask that question since long ago. Chapter 1699. A Man in a Responsible Position. Chapter 1699. A man in a responsible position. Comparing backgrounds, the Soaring Heaven King Palace was a lot more powerful than the lineage of Star. In terms of abilities, be it the number of almighties who were part of the higher-ups or the number of real gods, the Soaring Heaven King Palace had the lineage of Star beaten in both areas. As for their positions in the Sanctuary Alliance, the Soaring Heaven King Palace was at a much higher position than the lineage of Star, and this could be seen during the distribution of the token of the Fairy Palace's legacy every 30 years. During every distribution, the lineage of Star could only get one token of the Fairy Palace's legacy, while the Soaring Heaven King Palace could get two of them. Since the Soaring Heaven King Palace was better than the lineage of Star in every area, they could start a war with the lineage of Star right away. However, in the end, the Soaring Heaven King Palace Master's orders were imposing at the start, as he said that they would kill anyone who dared to stop them from killing Jian Wushuang. Indeed, they were also daring enough to kill the experts of the lineage of Star. However, from the start to the end, they only focused on one expert in the lineage of Star, and they had never threatened the lineage of Star for real. At that moment, they had suffered huge losses. Not only did they lose many experts, they had also lost many treasures. The most important thing was that they had lost a great amount of their prestige. According to the way that the Soaring Heaven King Palace had always done their things, they should have started a war with the lineage of Star immediately. However, in actual fact, the Soaring Heaven King Palace did not do it. After hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Hall Master Yuan and the two other Hall Masters looked at one another and laughed at once. Jian Wushuang, since you are already one of the Hall Masters, I can tell you some of the secrets of the lineage of Star. Hall Master Yuan laughed. That's right. The Soaring Heaven King Palace is powerful. Their abilities as a whole and their background are a lot stronger than the lineage of Star. However, even if more guts were loaned to them, they would still not dare to start a war with the lineage of Star for real. From the day the lineage of Star is founded to now, over so many years, the lineage of Star has only fought a war against a big powerhouse for real at the start. Although that big powerhouse was inferior to the Soaring Heaven King Palace, it was not different from them by too much. However, the lineage of Star scored a complete victory during that battle. Ever since then, all the powerhouses in the Sanctuary Alliance have dared not start a war with the lineage of Star for real. As for the reason, you can make a guess. Jian Wushuang frowned. However, his eyes glowed with a shrill light abruptly. Could it be because of the secret skill of Star Palace? That's right. It's the secret skill of Star Palace. Hall Master Yuan laughed. You also know that the lineage of Star has 4 secret skills. However, the most popular secret skill that caused experts from everywhere in the eternal chaotic world to be fearful is the secret skill of Star Palace. This secret skill is really frightening. Jian Wushuang had a puzzled expression. He was clear that the secret skill of Star Palace was actually the secret skill of 7 Star from the 7 Star Black Sect. Hence, it was a secret skill from the ancient past, and it ought to be frightening. Jian Wushuang, you have cultivated the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace. Thus, you do not need me to explain how powerful it is. As for our Palace Master, he has also cultivated the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace. When the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace is fully activated, his abilities will rise by 100 times straight away, and this will be maintained for a breath's time. Moreover, our Palace Master is an Emperor God. Furthermore, he is a well-known person among the Emperor Gods. With such abilities, if he were to unleash the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace as well, what level do you think our Palace Master would reach? Hall Master Yuan looked over with interest. Jian Wushuang was stunned. He was already a well-known person among the Emperor Gods. If he were to activate the 2nd volume of the secret skill of Star Palace as well, his abilities. Great Emperor level? Jian Wushuang said with surprise. That's right. It's Great Emperor level. Hall Master Yuan laughed. During the great battle between the lineage of Star and the big powerhouse back then, it became a one-sided suppression as the Palace Master unleashed the secret skill of Star Palace at the very start. As such, He killed 3 almighties, which included 1 emperor god of that big powerhouse with lightning speed. Therefore, how could that big powerhouse not be defeated? That's it. Jian Wushuang became shocked as he listened. He finally understood why the Soaring Heaven King Palace dared not start a war with the lineage of Star. It was because of the Star Palace Master being a great deterrent. After all, although it was only for a breath's time, he possessed great Emperor-level fighting capabilities. Moreover, when the secret skill of Star Palace was used, one had to wait for a period of time before being able to use it again. However, the fighting capabilities that could only last for a breath's time were enough to strike the Soaring Heaven King Palace with terror. As such, the Soaring Heaven King Palace dared to take the initiative to kill the experts of the lineage of Star, and they even dared to kill the top geniuses of the lineage of Star. However, as for starting a great battle with the lineage of Star, in particular, a great battle where they would fight to their last breath, they did not have the courage to do so as they were frightened. Palace Master? A man in a responsible position, Jian Wushuang gasped in admiration. He is indeed a man in a responsible position. With the Palace Master keeping watch, the lineage of Star also has a high position in the Sanctuary Alliance. Even though we have provoked some strong enemies and powerhouses, no one among them can do anything to the lineage of Star. For example, many powerhouses were envious of us because of the priceless white blaze fruit tree that you obtained back then. However, no one dared to cast their greedy eyes on it. Although that was mostly due to the Purple Moon Great Emperor, those powerhouses were also quite fearful of our Palace Master. Hall Master Yuan laughed. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Previously, he had not known much about the Star Palace Master. He only knew that the Star Palace Master was an emperor god with strong abilities and he had founded the lineage of Star. Moreover, he was fortunate to obtain the secret skill of 7-star of the 7-star Black Sect. However, Jian Wushuang did not know how important the Star Palace Master was in the lineage of Star. It is fortunate for the lineage of Star to have such a super expert keeping watch. However, everything has its pros and cons, Jian Wushuang murmured. To a sect, it was indeed good for them to have a man in a responsible position. However, if the man in a responsible position did not have some experts who could bear some heavy responsibilities beside him, it would definitely be a disaster for the sect if the man in a responsible position were to fall. It would be even more of a disaster, especially if the sect possessed treasures that could catch the greedy eyes of many people and had also offended quite a number of experts from other powerhouses. Alright, Jian Wushuang, there's something that I am very curious about. Hall Master Nye Yun questioned abruptly. By using real god Han Quan to threaten the Soaring Heaven King Palace, you obtained many benefits from them. In particular, I understand why you got 100,000 doctrine gems and 500 years of training time in the Fairy Palace. After all, you need them. However, as for the demon cores, why do you need so many demon cores? Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Gu Xen also looked over. They were curious as well. Jian Wushuang laughed at once. To tell you the truth, I wanted those demon cores so that I could absorb the pure power within them to make my divine power more powerful. An inverse cultivator like me is very different from a normal cultivator. At the level of a real god, the thickness of divine power is extremely important to me as it is the key to me making a breakthrough. However, relying on myself to train continuously and accumulate divine power is too slow. If I were to absorb demon cores, I could accumulate divine power a lot faster. Is that so? The 3 Hall Masters understood at once. If it's demon cores, the lineage of Star will have quite a number of them. Do you have enough demon cores on your hands now? If you do not have enough, I can give you some right away, Hall Master Yuan said. Chapter 1700, Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Chapter 1700, Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. If it's enough? It's definitely not enough, Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly. He knew clearly that ultimate divine power water droplet would be more difficult to precipitate as he progressed further. He had obtained quite a number of demon cores from Soaring Heaven King Palace. However, even if he absorbed all of them, Jian Wushuang reckoned he would at most precipitate 20 or maybe 30 ultimate divine power water droplets. He would still be far from the 100 drops needed to break through and become a stage 3 ultimate real god. I just got many grade 3 demon cores from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Just to absorb all of the demon cores will require a very long time. So, I'll wait till I absorb all the demon cores before I come to ask for more from Hall Master Yuan, Jian Wushuang replied. Tell me directly when you need it, Hall Master Yuan said. Actually, if it is about the accumulation of divine power, there are more ways to absorb them from demon cores. You can also use natural treasures, Hall Master Gu Xian said. To be frank, my divine power is unusual. Any ordinary treasure for the accumulation of divine power won't be much help to me. Only some extremely precious natural treasure will be effective for me. Plus, I would require a terrifying amount of them. If I were to rely on natural treasure to accumulate divine power, I reckon even lineage of star couldn't support me, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. He wasn't joking about what he said. Previously, he had thought about relying on natural treasure to precipitate 100 drops of ultimate divine power water droplet. However, the price was too high. It was even higher than a white blaze fruit tree. He naturally couldn't live in luxury like that. We don't have any ordinary natural treasures and we couldn't support any high-value treasure, but I have heard of a place that might be useful for the accumulation of divine power, Hall Master Gu Xian said. Oh! Jian Wushuang immediately looked at Hall Master Gu Xian. What place? Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Hall Master Gu Xian squinted her eyes. Of course, I've only heard about it from other people. It is said that an expert obtained a drop of absolute beginning divine power from an ancient battlefield. Then, she brought it back and it naturally developed and evolved into a divine pond. The divine pond is 999,999 zhang deep. It is huge and it contains boundless absolute beginning divine power. Plus, absolute beginning divine power is extremely pure. It is said that the power is 10 times purer compared to the power contained in the demon cores. On top of that, it is much easier to absorb. There was one time when a severely injured emperor god, who was on the brink of death, entered the divine pond of absolute beginning and he resumed his peak state in 3 years' time. What? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Nye Yun next to him were shocked too. It was obvious that it was their first time hearing about divine pond of absolute beginning as well. As for the effect of the divine pond, an emperor god on the brink of death, he recovered in 3 years. He was an emperor god. The stronger one's power was, the more difficult it was for one to recover after injury. Jian Wushuang, you need to absorb a large amount of pure power now to accumulate your divine power. In eternal chaotic world, I'm afraid there is nowhere with purer power than absolute beginning divine power from divine pond of absolute beginning, Hall Master Gu Xian said. Hall Master Gu Xian, do you know where the divine pond of absolute beginning is? Jian Wushuang asked. He was very interested in the divine pond of absolute beginning. After all, if divine pond of absolute beginning were to be that impressive, his divine power could totally be accumulated to the maximum in the shortest time possible. I've only heard about divine pond of absolute beginning. As for its actual location and its actual owner, I have no idea. Hall Master Gu Xian shook her head. However, there's a person who would likely know where the divine pond of absolute beginning is located. After all, I found out about the existence of divine pond of absolute beginning from him. Who's that person? Jian Wushuang asked closely. That person? He's a strange man, also a madman. He stays on Thunderbolt Island now. His name is called Mad Dog, Hall Master Gu Xian said. It's him. Hall Master Yuan and Hall Master Nye Yun were shocked. Mad Dog. Jian Wushuang was stunned and he immediately thought of a person. When he had first got to Thunderbolt Island, he met a strange elderly. The strange elderly had seen him and guided him to master his power superposition skill. His 10,000 wave skill was based on the power superposition skill. But after he had mastered the skill, the strange elderly had become unhappy and wanted to recruit him as his disciple. It was a pity that Jian Wushuang had rejected him. Then, Jian Wushuang had found out that the strange elderly was the strangest almighty in the entire Sanctuary Alliance on Thunderbolt Island. His name was Mad God and he had no other title. Almost everyone called him Mad Dog, but as they had scruples about his identity as an almighty, they would call him Sir God Mad Dog. Sir God Mad Dog liked to eat the most. Back then, Sir God Mad Dog expressed his interest in white blaze fruit and wanted to get a few white blaze fruit from Jian Wushuang, but he hadn't had any then. Jian Wushuang, do you know Sir God Mad Dog? Hall Master Gu Xian looked at him. I do, Jian Wushuang smiled. Not only that, I also have his communication token. He offered it to me. Communication token? Hall Master Gu Xian and the others were shocked. One should know that although Sir God Mad Dog wasn't a nice name, he was arrogant and obstinate. He behaved completely lawlessly in Sanctuary Alliance. He held no scruples against anyone and showed no consideration for anyone's feelings. It was naturally extremely difficult to get his communication token. At least Hall Master Yuan, Hall Master Gu Xian and Hall Master Nye Yun definitely didn't have it. But Jian Wushuang did, and it had been Sir God Mad Dog who had offered it to him. As Sir God Mad Dog offered his communication token to you, it means that you shared a friendly moment. You can go and ask him. Hall Master Gu Xian smiled. Jian Wushuang nodded, then he suddenly turned to look at Hall Master Yuan and said, speaking of Sir God Mad Dog, I nearly forgot about this. He is very interested in white blaze fruit. Hall Master Yuan, is there a white blaze fruit left in Lineage of Star? There are a few more and it will not be too long until the next fruiting of white blaze fruit tree. How many do you need? Hall Master Yuan asked. 2 will be enough. Sir God Mad Dog is only a greedy eater. He isn't using it for cultivation, Jian Wushuang smiled. Sure. After the banquet ends, I'll get them for you, Hall Master Yuan promised. In the lofty hall, the banquet was still ongoing. Then, Hall Master Yuan suddenly stood up and raised his glass. His loud and bright voice reverberated in the hall. Come on, everyone, let us toast Hall Master Wushuang. Everyone in the hall stood up simultaneously. Cheers! After eating and drinking, the banquet ended. Chapter 1701, Playing Tricks. Chapter 1701, Playing Tricks. The moment the banquet ended, Hall Master Yuan gave Jian Wushuang 2 white blaze fruits. Jian Wushuang took out the transmission token straight away. Sir God Mad Dog, Jian Wushuang said with respect. After some time, Sir God Mad Dog replied, Jian Wushuang? I heard that a little kid like you currently possesses the fighting capabilities of a Sir God. Moreover, you are ranked first in the real God ranking list. How impressive! Back then I really did not misjudge you. However, it's a pity that you were unwilling to be my disciple. If not, I would have the right to brag. Sir God Mad Dog, please don't make fun of me. Jian Wushuang laughed and asked, where are you now? Are you in the Thunderbolt Island? No. I have just come out of Thunderbolt Island and I am about to reach the Holy Kingdom of Dark Light, Sir God Mad Dog said. The Holy Kingdom of Dark Light? Jian Wushuang's expression changed. He had some impression of the Holy Kingdom of Dark Light. It was a holy kingdom that was not too far away from the 10 sanctuaries. I will set off now to go to where you are, Jian Wushuang said. But, are you finding me for something? Sir God Mad Dog questioned with doubt. It's nothing much. Back then, didn't you ask me to get you some white blaze fruits? I have just gotten them and I am specially sending them over to you, Jian Wushuang laughed. I appreciate the sentiment. I will be waiting for you in the Holy Kingdom of Dark Light. Sir God Mad Long laughed heartily. After terminating the transmission and knowing the whereabouts of Sir God Mad Dog, Jian Wushuang did not waste any time and he headed to the Holy Kingdom of Dark Light immediately. The Holy Kingdom of Dark Light was a normal holy kingdom in the eternal chaotic world. In particular, there were border areas in a region and they had been ruled by a powerhouse known as the Dark Sky Fortress for many years. In a giant mountain range. Slap. Slap. Sounds of a whip hitting flesh could be heard. At the same time, painful cries could be heard. Move faster. You are so slow. Are you looking to die? Some black-armored soldiers were ordering many cultivators to dig for gems. There were many cultivators, and their numbers amounted to more than tens of thousands of them. Most of them were heaven masters. However, a small number of them were universe gods. They had all been captured and brought over by the Dark Sky Fortress with force. After being brought to their current location, they lived their days out so miserably that it was at the point where they were better off dead than living. Although the cultivators were filled with anger and grievance, they could not show them. After all, to them, the Dark Sky Fortress was too powerful and it was a huge monster. All of a sudden, while a big group of black-armored soldiers were gathered together, a purple-robed middle-aged man who was more than 2 meters tall walked over. Upon seeing the purple-robed middle-aged man, although many cultivators who were doing hard labor below were gnashing their teeth with hatred, they had no choice but to lower their heads. The purple-robed middle-aged man was the fortress master of the Dark Sky Fortress, who was also an overlord of the whole holy kingdom of Dark Light. The Dark Sky Fortress master descended in front of a cave which had a seal on it, was at the center at the mountain range and was also guarded by many soldiers. How is the progress? The Dark Sky Fortress master looked at a soldier beside him. Fortress master, everything has been smooth, the soldier answered. All right, the Dark Sky Fortress master nodded his head. After that, he entered the cave alone. The Dark Sky Fortress master walked deep into the cave. Over there was a center which was filled with black air and the center was filled with pitch-black vines. On top of the vines, there was a pitch-black fruit which was emitting a sweet smell. The fruit was also the size of the head of a baby. Upon seeing the fruit, the Dark Sky Fortress master's eyes filled with excitement. Haha, by using the hatred of many cultivators as nutrients, the speed of growth the resentful soul fruit has indeed risen greatly. It will be done soon. In at most 10 years' time, this fruit will fully ripen. At that time, the Dark Sky Fortress master became extremely excited while thinking about it. He had found the fruit a long time ago. However, when he had first found it, the fruit was still extremely far away from ripening. As such, he had intentionally caught many cultivators and brought them to this area so that he could use their hatred to accelerate the growth of the fruit continuously. For the fruit, he had paid an extremely huge price. However, as long as the fruit was able to completely ripen, the price that he paid would be worth it. It's a resentful soul fruit. Just one of them alone is probably worth more than the possessions of many chaotic real gods, the Dark Sky Fortress master was muttering to himself. However, something strange occurred abruptly. All of a sudden, a part of the void broke open. After that, an old yellowish palm came out from the void and grabbed the pitch-black fruit. The palm then plucked the fruit straight away. Under the panicked eyes of the Dark Sky Fortress master, the pitch-black fruit was plucked by the palm. After that, the palm shrank violently and disappeared. The Dark Sky Fortress master became stupefied where he stood and a weird laugh rang in his ears. Hee hee, thank you very much. The Dark Sky Fortress master stared with so much anger that his eyes were about to tear apart. Who is it? Who is it? Quick, find him. Find this person immediately. I want his body torn into thousands of pieces. The Dark Sky Fortress master's roaring voice, which was filled with an infinite amount of anger, resounded through the gigantic mountain range. The mountain range also went into an uproar at once and countless soldiers of the Dark Sky Fortress started to search crazily. Just then, 2 figures were standing in a void somewhere in the mountain range. One of them was a strange old man who wore tattered clothes and was in a complete mess. He also wore a neckband which was filled with white bones. At that time, he was holding a pitch-black fruit and laughing arrogantly. Sir God Mad Dog, that's merely a resentful soul fruit. If you need it, I have one with me and I can give it to you. Hence, why did you exert so much effort to play tricks on those people? Jian Wushuang, who was carrying a long sword on his back, asked with a puzzled expression. Hee, Jian Wushuang, you don't know about me. I love to eat and I am fond of foods that are very valuable and rare. However, when eating, I like the flustered and exasperated look of someone whose item has been secretly eaten by me even more. Sir God Mad Dog laughed strangely. For example, this resentful soul fruit is merely worth 100 to 200 doctrine gems. To either of us, it is considered nothing. However, to the Dark Sky Fortress Master, this treasure is like his life savings. Thus, it would be weird if he did not go crazy from anger if I were to steal this resentful soul fruit under his nose. And I like to see him go crazy. This is really interesting. As Sir God Mad Dog spoke, he raised the pitch-black fruit in his hands and took a bite. After that, he ate the pitch-black fruit with great relish. Its taste is really not too bad, Sir God Mad Dog said willfully. Upon seeing that, Jian Wushuang shook his head. In this world, there were many kinds of people. Sir God Mad Dog was a true lunatic and everyone knew that. However, Jian Wushuang also knew that Sir God Mad Dog's crazy and strange way of doing things was definitely related to what he had experienced in the past. After all the Almighties paid close attention to their prestige and only Sir God Mad Dog did not care about it in the slightest bit. It was even to the point that his name was Mad Dog. Looking at just that point alone, he was unique among the Almighties. Chapter 1702, Can't Enter. Chapter 1702, Can't Enter. Jian Wushuang, where's the white blaze fruit that you brought for me? Sir God Mad Dog looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang smiled. He flipped his wrist and took out 2 white blaze fruits. 2. Sir God Mad Dog beamed with joy. Not bad, not bad. Sir God Mad Dog put the 2 white blaze fruits into his Qianku ring. Then he said leisurely, Young man, tell me then, why did you look for me? Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded. Sir God Mad Dog behaved like a crazy man but, in actual fact, he was shrewd. He knew that Jian Wushuang needed help as he had looked for him and brought him 2 white blaze fruits. I really do need help from Sir God Mad Dog. It's regarding the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, Jian Wushuang said. Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning? Sir God Mad Dog's eyes fixed. He was originally enjoying the resentful soul fruit with appetite and relish, but he suddenly paused. Don't tell me you're planning to go to Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning? Sir God Mad Dog said. I do have this plan in mind, Jian Wushuang smiled and didn't hide it. TSK, it's useless. Even if you plan to, you can't enter Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Sir God Mad Dog continued to eat the fruit. Why? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. This, Sir God Mad Dog was going to explain. Finally found him. An angry roar suddenly spread from the void before. Dark Sky Fortress Master led his troop of black armored soldiers behind him and plunged towards Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog. The eyes of Dark Sky Fortress Master gave out flagrant murderous intention, especially when he saw the half-eaten resentful soul fruit in Sir God Mad Dog's hand. His eyes turned bloodshot and red. Old man, how dare you take my resentful soul fruit? I want you dead and I'll crush you into ashes today. Dark Sky Fortress Master's roar shook the sky. Sir God Mad Dog couldn't be bothered. He even intentionally took another bite of the resentful soul fruit in front of Dark Sky Fortress Master and then threw the rest away. Hee, I'll give it back to you then. Give it back to me? You've almost finished it and you'll give it back to me? Dark Sky Fortress Master was raging with anger. Die! An outstanding aura was released from Dark Sky Fortress Master's body. The aura had already reached the level of an eternal real god. An eternal real god was definitely a superb existence of overlord level in Holy Kingdom. Some kings of Holy Kingdoms were merely on that level as well. At such a level, they were like ants before Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog. Looking at the Dark Sky Fortress Master charging at them, Jian Wushuang's face turned cold. Go away! There was a low bellow. The voice was low, but it shook the hearts of the Dark Sky Fortress Master and the black-armored soldiers behind him like a clap of loud thunder. Dark Sky Fortress Master, who was originally angry and wanted to kill Sir God Mad Dog, suddenly stiffened. There was an unprecedented fear in his eyes. He stared at Jian Wushuang as his heart grew numb. Jian Wushuang had already reached the level of Stage 2 Ultimate Real God. His divine power and divine body were of the level of an almighty. His power was naturally of almighty level. Just how strong and powerful would his low bellow be? Dark Sky Fortress Master could only feel that his divine body was going to explode from the roar. He could feel that the young man carrying a sword on his back could kill him countless times with one thought. If he felt so, the black-armored soldiers behind him were even more terrified. "I'm sorry, mister. We shall leave immediately." "Go now." Dark Sky Fortress Master had no more temper. His earlier anger had vanished into thin air. He immediately led his troops and ran away quickly. When the people had left, Jian Wushuang looked at Sir God Mad Dog again. "Sir God Mad Dog, you said I can't enter Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Why?" "Don't panic." Sir God Mad Dog waved and an ancient green spaceship appeared in the void before them. "Let's go, we will talk on the spaceship." "Let's move as we talk." Jian Wushuang nodded. The two of them immediately got onto the spaceship. Sir God Mad Dog drove the spaceship and plunged outside of Holy Kingdom of Dark Light. In the cabin, Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog sat opposite one another as they chatted. "Jian Wushuang, as you heard about Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, you definitely know the origins of Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, right?" Sir God Mad Dog asked. "Yes," Jian Wushuang nodded. "It is said that an expert retrieved a drop of power of absolute beginning from an ancient battlefield. Then, it developed and evolved into Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning." That's true, but you must understand that the evolution of power of absolute beginning took a very long time. From the one drop of divine power in the beginning to a divine pond, God knows how many years it took, Sir God Mad Dog started to explain. In the end, the divine pond of absolute beginning got bigger and the effect got more shocking. There was a rumor that said that a severely injured emperor god had entered the divine pond of absolute beginning and resumed his peak in 3 years. That's true because I saw it with my own eyes. However, although the emperor god resumed his peak, he expanded the power of absolute beginning in the divine pond of absolute beginning for 3 years. After such expense, Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning would need at least tens of thousands of years of evolution until it could be recovered. That's why the Emperor God paid a price that equaled half of his possessions. Half his possessions? Jian Wushuang stunned. Emperor God was the level of a Star Palace Master. In the eternal chaotic world, a super expert that was second to the Great Emperor. Such a top expert had shockingly great possessions, far beyond what Jian Wushuang could imagine. However, merely recovering in the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning for 3 years had cost him half of his possessions. The price was too high. It's so even for Emperor God. As for you, Sir God Mad Dog looked at Jian Wushuang. Young man, you are an inverse cultivator. If you were to make a trip to Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning and expend power of Absolute Beginning, I reckon it shouldn't be any less than for the Emperor God. From what I know, a long time ago, when real God Wu Bei was still alive, he once found the owner of Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, Sir God Luo Sha, and he offered a great price and talked terms with Sir God Luo Sha. Sir God Luo Sha had originally thought he was just a real god, and even as an inverse cultivator, he would at most take a year's or 2 years' worth of power of Absolute Beginning from Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Then he agreed. But in the end, real God Wu Bei stayed in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning for 8 years. He also absorbed 8 years of power of Absolute Beginning and never came out. Sir God Luo Sha was furious and he chased real God Wu Bei out by force. After that incident, when Sir God Luo Sha found out how much power of Absolute Beginning from Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning he lost, he nearly killed real God Wu Bei. Chapter 1703, Huge Price. Chapter 1703, Huge Price. What Sir Dog Mad Dog said had shaken Jian Wushuang. An inverse cultivator required an accumulation of divine power when they were at the level of real God. It was an accumulation of extravagantly extensive divine power. 100 drops of ultimate divine power water droplet were harder to precipitate at the later stage. Jian Wushuang had massacred so many star demons in the 8th layer and collected so many demon cores, but he had only managed to precipitate 10 drops of ultimate divine power water droplet with difficulty and broken through to become a stage 2 ultimate real god. The remaining ultimate divine power water droplet required absorption of a terrifyingly extensive amount of pure power. An emperor god had absorbed 3 years' worth of power of absolute beginning in divine pond of absolute beginning until he fully recovered to his peak. Even if an inverse cultivator were to stay in divine pond of absolute beginning for 5 to 10 years, his ultimate divine power might not be able to reach a saturation point, which was when he would break through and become stage 3 ultimate real god. Real god Wu Bei stayed in divine pond of absolute beginning for 8 years. But in the end, he obviously had yet to reach his limit before he was chased out by Sir God Luo Sha by force. With the lesson of real God Wu Bei, tell me, would the controller of divine pond of absolute beginning, Sir God Luo Sha, let you enter divine pond of absolute beginning? Sir God Mad Dog said with a spurious smile. Jian Wushuang heard and smiled bitterly. Is there no way at all? Jian Wushuang asked. Whether or not is there a way, we shall see after we meet Sir God Luo Sha, Sir God Mad Dog said. Jian Wushuang nodded. He knew that it was useless no matter how much Sir God Mad Dog and him talked. After all, the divine pond of absolute beginning was in the control of Sir God Mad Dog. The conditions that he had to fulfill and the price he had to pay to enter divine pond of absolute beginning would be determined by Sir God Luo Sha. An ancient green spaceship traveled at fast speed in the void. The speed was terrifyingly fast. Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog were on the spaceship. They dined and chatted. Occasionally, Jian Wushuang would absorb some demon cores. 60 years later, the green spaceship arrived at a remote dark void. In the dark void, there were layers of prohibition and vast fog. The space-time was unique too. Unless one knew the background of the void, there wouldn't be anyone who would barge into the void. In the middle of the dark void, there was a piece of floating land. The size of the land wasn't big, it was only about 100,000 miles, including mountains and rivers. The scenery was like a painting, was like land of peach blossom. This is where Sir God Luo Sha resides? Jian Wushuang looked at the piece of floating land. This is so secretive. Humph. Sir God Luo Sha is eccentric and unsociable. Although she is one of the members of Sanctuary Alliance, she almost never visits Thunderbolt Island and she hardly gets in contact with the experts from Sanctuary Alliance. There are even many experts that didn't know of her existence. She has been living in seclusion. There are less than 10 people from the entire Sanctuary Alliance who know her residence place, Sir God Mad Dog said. In Sanctuary Alliance, there should be quite a few experts who live in seclusion like Sir God Luo Sha, right? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. There are some and there are quite a few of them, Sir God Mad Dog said. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows but he wasn't surprised. At that moment, in the middle of the prohibition surrounding the piece of land in front of them, there was a space tunnel that appeared from nowhere. It was obvious that Sir God Luo Sha had known that they were arriving long ago. Come on, let's head in. Sir God Mad Dog led the way and entered the space tunnel together with Jian Wushuang. In the scroll painting-like world on the piece of floating land, there was a simple bamboo house. Before the bamboo house, there was a stone table. Then, there was a silver-haired old lady in a simple robe sitting as she weaved a bamboo basket. Old witch, long time no see, Sir God Mad Dog was casual in his manner. He came before the bamboo house and sat down on the stone stool right opposition the silver-haired old lady as Jian Wushuang stood next to him. Hearing Sir God Mad Dog's greetings, Sir God Luo Sha wasn't angry. Old Mad Dog, you don't look for food but came to my place, what for? I don't have anything for you to eat here. Ha, I know you don't have anything delicious. I don't even bother to come and look for you, Sir God Mad Dog replied casually. Oh. Sir God Luo Sha was surprised. Then, she turned to look at Jian Wushuang. This is? Jian Wushuang. Greetings, Sir God Luo Sha. Jian Wushuang bowed politely. Jian Wushuang? Sir God Luo Sha looked calm. I have not kept in touch with the outside world for very long and I have never heard of your name. Let me ask around. Sir God Luo Sha took out a token and sent a message to ask. In a short while, she received information about Jian Wushuang. I see. You're from lineage of Star and you're in the first place on Real God ranking list. You are quite famous. Sir God Luo Sha looked surprised. Then she asked, I wonder what's the purpose of your visit today? I am coming for the divine pond of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang didn't beat around the bush. Sir God Luo Sha wasn't surprised and she continued to weave her bamboo basket while she said calmly, as Mad Dog has brought you here, he should have told you some stories. Do you think that after what happened with Real God Wu Bei, I would let you, an inverse cultivator, enter divine pond of absolute beginning? Sir God Luo Sha, in this world, no matter what the incident is, there is space for negotiation. Divine pond of absolute beginning will be really extremely helpful to me, but I have no idea what price I have to pay in order to enter and absorb power of absolute beginning to my heart's content. Jian Wushuang said solemnly. The last time Real God Wu Bei entered, he stayed there for 8 years. I had to chase him out by force. If I hadn't, even if he had stayed there for 10 years, the divine power in his body might not have reached his limit. An inverse cultivator absorbing 10 years' worth of divine power wantonly, just how extensive would be the amount of power of absolute beginning absorbed? You can't afford the price. Sir God Luo Sha said. Sir God Luo Sha, if you don't make it clear, how will I know if I can afford it? Jian Wushuang said. You're so stubborn. I'll be straightforward with you then. I heard that lineage of Star has got a white blaze fruit tree? Sir God Luo Sha looked at him. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. The white blaze fruit tree was what he had gotten. That's simple. If you have the ability to give the white blaze fruit tree that you gave lineage of Star to me, I will let you stay in divine pond of absolute beginning for 10 years, Sir God Luo Sha said. What? Jian Wushuang looked strained. He had known since long ago that Sir God Luo Sha would ask for a huge price, but he had never expected it to be that huge. A white blaze fruit tree. One should know that the white blaze fruit tree was something that all forces cast greedy eyes over. Plus, even if he brought a white blaze fruit tree, he could only stay in divine pond of absolute beginning for 10 years. In 10 years, Jian Wushuang wasn't sure if he could accumulate ultimate divine power to his extreme limit. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Sha's Enmity. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Sha's Enmity. Although I was the one who got the white blaze fruit tree, it is extremely useful to lineage of Star. I can't exchange a white blaze fruit tree for an opportunity to enter divine pond of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Sir God Luo Sha, is there no other possibility? Another possibility? Yes, Sir God Luo Sha suddenly looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, I read the information recorded on Real God ranking list. It is said that you once injured Sir God Qianlan. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. Sir God Qianlan is an almighty from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Why would he fight with you? Sir God Luo Sha asked. It was because, when I was wandering in the 8th lair, I killed one expert after another from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang briefly shared his story of the 8th lair. Actually, many experts in Eternal Chaotic World knew about the story. However, as Sir God Luo Sha was secluded from the outside world, she never heard about it. He finished the story. In other words, Soaring Heaven King Palace suffered a great loss because of you? Sir God Luo Sha's eyes squinted. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded again. I knew about this as well, Sir God Mad Dog spoke. Soaring Heaven King Palace has been barbaric and they never once suffered. But this time, not only did they suffer a great loss, they were embarrassed. They even became a laughing stock in Eternal Chaotic World. This is because of Jian Wushuang. I see. Sir God Luo Sha looked at Jian Wushuang again, but her gaze was different than before. Jian Wushuang, you can enter divine pond of absolute beginning and you can stay however long you want, Sir God Luo Sha said. Huh. Jian Wushuang was thrilled with excitement. And the price is? There's no price required. You can just enter. If there's only one condition, it's that after you increase your power, you'll kill that bastard Ling Yun on my behalf. Sir God Luo Sha bellowed as murderous intention soared in her eyes. Bastard Ling Yun? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He didn't even know who he was. Jian Wushuang, that bastard Ling Yun that Sir God Luo Sha was talking about, is the founder of Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Ling Yun. Soaring Heaven King Palace has 2 Emperor Gods. Emperor God Ling Yun is the oldest and also the strongest. Compared to Star Palace Master from lineage of Star, he should only be stronger, not weaker. Of course, if Star Palace Master were to perform the secret skill of Star Palace with his all, Emperor God Ling Yun could only run away hastily, Sir God Mad Dog said. Sir God Mad Dog was talking to Jian Wushuang via communication token. Then, Sir God Luo Sha didn't know what they were talking about. Judging from Sir God Luo Sha's look, the rumor should be real. Sir God Mad Dog sighed emotionally. Rumor? What rumor? Jian Wushuang asked. A rumor said that Sir God Luo Sha once had a loving husband, who was also a Sir God expert. The 2 of them were like a celestial couple. But then, somehow or other, her husband was killed by Emperor God Ling Yun. Sir God Luo Sha wanted to take revenge on Soaring Heaven King Palace badly once because of that. However, she was alone. She couldn't cause such a major force like Soaring Heaven King Palace to move, Sir God Mad Dog said. This happened long ago. Plus, Sir God Luo Sha never brought it up herself, so I didn't know if it was true or false. But from what it seems, it should be true. Jian Wushuang, you're lucky, Sir God Mad Dog teased. Jian Wushuang smiled. That was true. He couldn't pay the price that Sir God Luo Sha wanted. He thought he was predestined not to cross paths with Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, but who knew Sir God Luo Sha harbored such deep hatred against Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang had happened to fight against Soaring Heaven King Palace head-on, which had made them suffer great losses and became a laughingstock. It simply meant that he had vented Sir God Luo Sha's grievance. Jian Wushuang, Sir God Luo Sha looked at Jian Wushuang. You made Soaring Heaven King Palace suffer a great loss and they definitely won't let it slip. Back then, my husband merely taught the disciple of Soaring Heaven King Palace a lesson as he couldn't stand their barbaric behavior. Then bastard Ling Yun took action personally to kill my husband. My husband was naturally gifted. If it wasn't because of bastard Ling Yun, he would have become an emperor by now. You, in terms of potential, are not inferior to my husband. Soaring Heaven King Palace won't let you continue to grow. They definitely won't. So, show no mercy, don't win by luck or think that you might be able to resolve the resentment with Soaring Heaven King Palace. It is impossible, definitely impossible. What you need to do is to destroy Soaring Heaven King Palace entirely and kill all of them. Then, you can live in this world in peace. Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn. He knew that Sir God Luo Sha was speaking the truth. Soaring Heaven King Palace definitely wouldn't let it go. Between him and Soaring Heaven King Palace, there wasn't any possibility to resolve resentment. Soaring Heaven King Palace would definitely stop at nothing until he died. After quite some time, Sir God Luo Sha finally calmed down. Excuse me. Sorry that I lost control. Sir God Luo Sha's face became cold. Jian Wushuang, follow me. Sir God Luo Sha led Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog to the void at the back. Very soon, the 3 of them arrived at the core of the piece of floating land. It was covered within a prohibition and they could faintly see a pond. The pond wasn't huge in size, but it looked rather deep. Jian Wushuang heard from Hall Master Gu Xen back in lineage of Star that Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning was 999,900 zhang deep. That is Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. You can enter directly. But remember, you must only absorb the power of Absolute Beginning. Don't touch or move the special prohibition or formation in the Divine Pond. The formation is extremely important to the Divine Pond. Once it's moved, the consequences will be disastrous, Sir God Luo Sha exhorted. I understand. Thank you, Sir God Luo Sha, Jian Wushuang thanked her. Go ahead, Sir God Luo Sha waved her hand. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and took a stride forward and plunged towards the divine pond. He arrived at the pond very soon. Old witch, you were quite generous this time. You let Jian Wushuang absorb the power of absolute beginning in divine pond of absolute beginning to his heart's content. He is an inverse cultivator. Aren't you afraid that he will finish up the power of absolute beginning? Sir God Mad Dog smiled. Humph. My divine pond of absolute beginning isn't as simple as you think it is. So what if he is an inverse cultivator? As long as he is capable, go ahead and absorb it. If he were to have the capability to absorb 1/100th of the divine pond, I'd think he was impressive, Sir God Luo Sha sneered. Plus, this young man embarrassed soaring Heaven King Palace. Forget about the 1/100th power of absolute beginning. Even if he took away 1/10th power of absolute beginning, I'd let him in. Because I am happy. Chapter 1705, Power of Absolute Beginning. Chapter 1705, Power of Absolute Beginning. Within the divine pond of absolute beginning, white pond water was flowing about. Jian Wushuang was inside the divine pond of absolute beginning and only his head was left on top of the water. This is the power of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang felt the white pond water thoroughly. It was pure and it did not have any impurities. It's too pure. Its power is even purer and in a greater amount than the demon core's power. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Hall Master Guexen was right. The power of absolute beginning had to be the purest power in the eternal chaotic world. For such a power, not only could it be absorbed and changed into divine power, it also contained shocking recovery powers. It was no wonder that a dying emperor god had recovered to his peak after staying in the divine pond for 3 years. Let's try it. Jian Wushuang attempted to absorb the power of absolute beginning at once. As he absorbed, the white pond water around him entered his body slowly. After that, with the heavenly creation skill active, the pond water started to transform. After just a short amount of time, a small bit of ultimate divine power, which was transformed from the power of absolute beginning, was formed. This speed of transformation, it's a lot faster than when I absorbed the demon cores. Moreover, in terms of quality, it is a lot better. The ultimate divine power that has been transformed from the power of absolute beginning that I have absorbed for this period of time is probably slightly higher than the amount I would get from absorbing a grade 3 demon core. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes wide and they were filled with delight. Let's begin. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate and he made the best use of his time immediately to start absorbing and transforming the power of absolute beginning in the divine pond. As he absorbed, the ultimate divine power in his body continued to increase. After that, the 11th droplet of ultimate divine power started to precipitate slowly. In just 3 days' time, the 11th ultimate divine power water droplet was precipitated. It's too fast. It has only been 3 days. Jian Wushuang was over the moon. It should be known that if he had continued to rely on absorbing the demon cores, it would be unknown how many demon cores and how much time he would need to precipitate the 11th droplet of the ultimate divine power. However, in the divine pond of absolute beginning, he only took 3 days. Let's continue. With a frenzy of delight, Jian Wushuang immersed himself completely into absorbing the power of absolute beginning. Time passed by slowly. In front of the bamboo house, Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog were sitting opposite each other, just like before. 10 years has already passed. However, Jian Wushuang still has not come out of the divine pond of absolute beginning. In 10 years' time, I wonder how much power of absolute beginning he has absorbed. Old witch, doesn't your heart ache at all? Sir God Mad Dog laughed. Do you think that I am you? Sir God Luo Sha shot a glance toward Sir God Mad Dog. The divine power that an inverse cultivator needs has indeed exceeded my expectations. Hee hee, Sir God Mad Dog laughed strangely. After that, he flipped his hands and took out 2 white blaze fruits. He gave one of them to Sir God Luo Sha. This is a white blaze fruit? Sir God Luo Sha revealed a surprised expression. Old witch, Don't say that I am reluctant. I only have a total of 2 white blaze fruits and they were given to me by Jian Wushuang. Now I'm giving one of them to you. Aren't I being a good person? Sir God Mad Dog laughed strangely. Sir God Luo Sha did not stand on ceremony and put the white blaze fruit into her Qian Kuan ring right away. As for Sir God Mad Dog, he held the white blaze fruit in his hands and started to eat it with huge bites. He looked like he was enjoying it. It's really a waste for the white blaze fruit to be in your hands, Sir God Luo Sha curled her lips. At the same time as these 2 Sir Gods were having a conversation, outside the black void, a giant spaceship from the outside world was traveling slowly. In the spaceship, there were 4 figures and they were looking forward at the black void which was filled with dense fog. Among the 4 of them, the person at the front was a handsome young man who wore a luxurious purple long robe as well as a heartrending smile. That Sir God Luo Sha lives here? Haha, it's really a very remote location. It's indeed remote. A cold and gloomy old man who was beside him laughed. If your highness doesn't know, Sir God Luo Sha is an unsociable and eccentric person. Ever since her husband died, she hid herself from the world and she did not have any contact with the outside world. Even within the Sanctuary Alliance, there is probably less than 10 people who know where she lives. We have also spent a lot of effort and time to find this place. Oh, is that so? The handsome man raised the corners of his mouth and his smile became even more obvious. If Jian Wushuang were present, he would definitely be extremely furious when he saw the handsome young man. As he was the person who was with Lung Ruxue in the Blood Demon Church back then, His Highness Mu Hong. Back then, when Jian Wushuang had been fighting with His Highness Mu Hong head-on, he had come across the inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven abruptly. In the end, he was trampled on by His Highness Mu Hong. How are the abilities of Sir God Luo Sha? His Highness Mu Hong questioned. She's very strong. Out of the Sir Gods, she should be at the top level. However, with our lineup, it will be easy to kill her. The cold and gloomy old man answered. For our mission this time around, killing Sir God Luo Sha is secondary. The most important thing is that divine pond of absolute beginning. The 7th Palace Master has instructed us that we must get the divine pond of absolute beginning at all costs. Even if we are unable to get it, we absolutely have to destroy it. If not, when a great battle breaks out in the future, the divine pond of absolute beginning will give 2 benefits to the Sanctuary Alliance. The cold and gloomy old man was certain about how impressive the divine pond of absolute beginning was. A dying emperor god could recover to his peak after being in the divine pond of absolute beginning for 3 years. If Sir God Luo Sha were to use it without caring about anything else, the power of absolute beginning that had accumulated in the divine pond of absolute beginning could absolutely provide many almighties with divine power and also heal their injuries continuously. When the divine pond of absolute beginning had just formed, the higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance wanted to place it in the Thunderbolt Island. However, the divine pond of absolute beginning had long been like a treasure of Sir God Luo Sha and it was completely under her control. Without her consent, even the Sanctuary Alliance was unable to snatch it away with force. As such, they could only discuss some conditions with her. However, the condition that Sir God Luo Sha brought up was to kill Emperor God Ling Yun and destroy the Soaring Heaven King Palace. However, she was rejected by the Sanctuary Alliance. Therefore, in a fit of fury, Sir God Luo Sha brought the divine pond of absolute beginning along with her and left the Sanctuary Alliance. Since then, she has kept herself hidden from the world and has not come out. As such, the Sanctuary Alliance cannot do anything to her. However, it is fortunate that she possesses the divine pond of absolute beginning as this has given us an opportunity. If it were in the Thunderbolt Island, there would be nothing that we could do, the cold and gloomy old man laughed. Since the Sanctuary Alliance cannot control Sir God Luo Sha, we shall be the ones to do it. His Highness Mu Hong laughed coldly. Let's charge in directly. With the order of His Highness Mu Hong, the ancient spaceship immediately charged forward into the black void, which was covered by a seal. It also moved at a shocking speed and headed toward the center of the dark void where a floating land was. Atop the piece of floating land, the expressions of Sir God Mad Dog and Sir God Luo Sha, who were originally having a conversation, changed abruptly. Chapter 1706, Sudden Change. Chapter 1706, Sudden Change. Someone barged in. There was a chilly gleam in Sir God Luo Sha's eyes. What? Sir God Mad Dog looked over with a surprised look. I set up a prohibition in the void. Even if there were to be someone who came to visit me, they would normally wait outside the prohibition and only enter after they received my permission. However, the people who came didn't receive my permission, Sir God Luo Sha said. Hong. There was a loud explosion in the nearby void. At the same time, there was a fierce divine aura that spread. Damn it. They already started to attack the prohibition. Although the prohibition that I've set up is not too shabby, a Sir God could forcefully break it if he were to hit it with all his power. Among the people who came, there is obviously someone who is good at formations. Sir God Luo Sha's voice was deep. In a short time, the prohibition that surrounded the floating land collapsed by force. Sir God Luo Sha, you have been living the life all these years. There was a burst of hearty laughter. Then there were 4 figures who plunged over. The 4 of them let out powerful auras and they were already at Sir God level. For Sir Gods. Sir God Luo Sha's face grew grave. I have never seen the 4 Sir Gods in Sanctuary Alliance before. They are definitely not from Sanctuary Alliance. They are either from Holocaust Sect or Acheron Palace. Sir God Mad Dog's gaze grew cold. In Eternal Chaotic World, Sanctuary Alliance was an absolute overlord, the supreme. There was no doubt about that. However, although Sanctuary Alliance was strong, there was a hidden enemy. Star Demon Clan in the 8th layer was just one of them. Plus, Star Demon Clan had only stayed within the 8th layer. As long as the number of Star Demon didn't reach a limit, they almost never would leave the 8th layer. Besides Star Demon's clan, there were many hidden forces that could pose a threat to Sanctuary Alliance. These hidden forces moved around the 10 sanctuaries. They moved within Eternal Chaotic World. Among the hidden forces, Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace were the strongest. Holocaust Sect frequently massacred large numbers of cultivators for their own benefit. They would even massacre to the extent of a world or even a holy kingdom. They were definitely one of the most vicious forces. They were also the public enemy of all cultivators. As for Acheron Palace, they were the most treacherous and the most well-hidden force. They did not take action recklessly, but once they took action, the person who they were aiming at had almost zero possibility of staying alive. There were countless experts in Sanctuary Alliance who had died at the hands of Acheron Palace. Back when Hall Master Yuan had told Jian Wushuang to be careful of the hidden forces, he was mainly warning him about Acheron Palace. A genius like Jian Wushuang, Acheron Palace normally wouldn't let him live for too long. They are here for Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. Sir God Luo Sha instantly understood. Old Mad Dog, I'm afraid I'll have to drag you in for this. Don't mention it. No matter if they are from Holocaust Sect of Acheron Palace, they are enemies of Sanctuary Alliance, and public enemies of countless cultivators in Eternal Chaotic World. Although I am casual in manner most of the time, I do understand this principle, Sir God Mad Dog said in a low voice. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The 4 figures appeared in the void not far away and they stood side by side but didn't launch attacks in the first instant. I never thought Mad Dog would be here as well. A treacherous elderly among the 4 of them squinted his eyes. Mad Dog isn't weak in power and he definitely won't just sit and watch. He teams up with Sir God Luo Sha. It will be much more troublesome to deal with them. God Chi, God Ba, the 2 of you teamed up with me to fight against Sir God Luo Sha and this Mad Dog. Your Highness Mu Hong, we will have to trouble you for Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. No problem, Highness Mu Hong smiled and nodded. I originally thought if there was only Sir God Luo Sha alone, I'd like to fight with her and have some training. As they are in a team of 2. In order to save time, I shall not join the fight. Your Highness Mu Hong, if you want to train, there will be many opportunities in the future, the treacherous elderly smiled. Oh yeah, when Your Highness Mu Hong arrives at Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, it's best if you first check if there are other experts in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, just in case. If there is, Your Highness Mu Hong, please instantly leave. If there isn't, please go according to our plan. Don't worry. I'm not stupid. If there is a powerful Sir God or Emperor God absorbing power of Absolute Beginning in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, I won't attack hastily, His Highness Mu Hong scoffed. Sir God Luo Sha controlled the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning long ago. If we want it, we definitely can't kill Sir God Luo Sha and have to catch her alive. As for the mad dog, we can kill him straight away. The treacherous elderly looked at his other two teammates. God Chi, God Ba, let's do this. Hong. The four Sir God experts moved at the same time. Among the four of them, there were three that instantly gave out fierce Sir God aura and their power pressed to all directions. Then, they pounded Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog like lightning. As for His Highness Mu Hong, he instantly flew in the direction where Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning was located. As the four Sir Gods moved, Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog moved as well. There was an extra pair of black gloves on Sir God Mad Dog's hand while the boundless Sir God aura soared up from his body. The aura was tainted with an angry rage. Wow! Sir God Mad Dog's body turned illusory. He originally was one figure, then he instantly became three figures. Just like three flowing lights, they burst out instantly and the three flowing lights waved their sharp claws simultaneously. There were three figures that performed at the same time, but they immediately merged together when the sharp claws flashed. Walalala! The void was torn into pieces instantly. Sir God Luo Sha wielded a green soft sword and she was engulfed in a cloud of mist. The cloud of mist flew before her opponents and then the sword light flowed out. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. One sword light suddenly swept out after another. Every single stroke of sword light carried a billowing hatred. Hate, hate, hate. With extreme hatred. She looked as though she wanted to break their bones and scatter their ashes to the winds. Old mad dog, I knew long ago that you had comprehended a power superposition skill. Now that I see it with my own eyes, you live up to the name. It's a pity that you are going to die in the end. The treacherous elderly, God Chi and God Ba, the three Sir God experts immediately greeted them by displaying their powerful skills. Their powers as Sir God experts were given full play by then. The five Sir Gods were fighting vigorously. However, although Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog were powerful, it was already pushing their limits for the two of them to hold back three Sir Gods. As for His Highness Mu Hong, who was going to Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, they couldn't do anything about it. Sir God Mad Dog had sent a message to Jian Wushuang long ago. Jian Wushuang, something happened. Hurry up and come out. Chapter 1707, Meeting His Highness Mu Hong Again. Chapter 1707, Meeting His Highness Mu Hong Again. While being shrouded by the infinite amount of pond water in the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, Jian Wushuang had closed both his eyes and was still doing his best to absorb the power of Absolute Beginning. The amount of divine power that an inverse cultivator needed to accumulate in the stage of real God had indeed exceeded Jian Wushuang's expectations. For the 100 droplets of ultimate divine power, with the more progress he had made, the harder it would be to precipitate the droplets at the back. Luckily, he was inside the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. If he had relied purely on absorbing the pure power of the demon cores or relied on his own training to accumulate, he could not imagine the amount of time he would take. To date, 10 years had passed. However, he was still quite far away from the maximum amount of ultimate divine power he could possess in his body. Gurgle, the power of Absolute Beginning was flowing about and it entered Jian Wushuang's body continuously. At present, the 88th ultimate divine power water droplet was precipitating slowly in Jian Wushuang's body. It's the 88th droplet. Jian Wushuang was filled with immeasurable joy. 88 droplets was only 12 droplets away from 100 droplets. Hence, it was already very close. If nothing goes wrong, in 2 or 3 years' time, my ultimate divine power can achieve its peak. At that time, I will be able to make a breakthrough to stage 3 ultimate real God, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Just then, Sir God Mad Dog sent a message over to him. Jian Wushuang, something has happened. Come out quickly. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes fiercely. Sir God Mad Dog knew that he was training in the divine pond of absolute beginning. If there was nothing that was extremely urgent, he would definitely not disturb him. However, since Sir God Mad Dog had sent a message over, something big had definitely occurred. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang came out of the divine pond of absolute beginning immediately. However, when he appeared at the top of the void, he saw a figure that was speeding over from afar. Upon seeing the figure, Jian Wushuang was first stunned. After that, his eyes became filled with a great amount of murderous intent right away. His Highness Mu Hong, who Jian Wushuang was staring at, naturally saw Jian Wushuang as well. It's him. Enemies are really bound to meet each other. His Highness Mu Hong raised his eyebrows. After that, he continued to move toward Jian Wushuang. At the start, when he saw that there was someone beside the divine pond of absolute beginning, he was shocked. However, when he was sure that the person was Jian Wushuang, he stopped having any worries. After all, Jian Wushuang was merely his defeated opponent. In the void, His Highness Mu Hong had already appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and he had stopped moving. Jian Wushuang, we meet again. His Highness Mu Hong looked at Jian Wushuang coldly and his eyes were filled with disdain. Jian Wushuang did not speak. However, his face was ice cold. The Blood Mountain sword then appeared on his hands and a great amount of murderous intent rose from his body slowly. But, you still wish to fight with me? His Highness Mu Hong sneered, seems like I did not trample on you for long enough back then. It's a pity that an unforeseen event occurred back then and you got away. However, this time round, you will not be so lucky. Let me ask you, where is Leng Rushue? Jian Wushuang spoke abruptly. His Highness Mu Hong was stunned. After that, his face became distorted and he spoke, damn it. Is Lunger's name something trash like you can call out? Where is she? If you refuse to say, I will kill you. Jian Wushuang's voice sounded as though it came from an abysmal hell. Moreover, his body was also approached His Highness Mu Hong slowly. For every step he took, the god power and murderous intent on his body would be stronger. At the start, His Highness Mu Hong did not care about Jian Wushuang at all. However, as Jian Wushuang walked toward him step by step, especially with that huge pressure that was exerted on him such that he was actually suffocating slightly, he started to feel fearful. You are just a piece of trash. Since you have been trampled by me at another time, it will also be the same this time round. His Highness Mu Hong glowed with a shrill light and he released his aura of a Sir God immediately. A green sickle also appeared in his hands. His body then turned vague and layers upon layers of green shadows burst forth at once. As for Jian Wushuang, he just looked on coldly as His Highness Mu Hong attacked him. When he had come across His Highness Mu Hong in the Blood Demon Church the other time, he had merely been a universe god of the second heaven. As for His Highness Mu Hong, he had already made a breakthrough to become a void real god. At that time, when they had come across each other again, Jian Wushuang was a stage 2 ultimate real god while His Highness Mu Hong, for whatever reason, had somehow made a breakthrough to Sir God and he had entered the ranks of the Sir Gods. It was a similar encounter and a similar gap in terms of realm. However, the different thing was that the inverse cultivation test would no longer descend abruptly for Jian Wushuang. Trash, go to hell. His Highness Mu Hong's murderous intent burst forth and an infinite amount of green light appeared from his body. The green light then gathered around his body and changed into a gigantic green god. After that, His Highness Mu Hong swung the green sickle in his hands fiercely. At once, a brilliant green sickle river materialized. During the process, the green sickle river expanded at a shocking speed and it covered the whole universe in the end. The frightening sickle essence that the sickle river contained also seemed to be able to tear everything in the universe apart. Jian Wushuang took a step forward and raised the Blood Mountain sword in his hands abruptly. His vast amount of divine power was then poured into the long sword without any restraint. In the void, crimson sword shadows appeared out of thin air, and every one of them was so strong that it was shocking. Moreover, there was a total of 61 of them. The 61 crimson sword shadows then superimposed onto one another and fused. With that, a destructive power spread across the area. Swish! The crimson sword shadow was swung out straight away. It then split the space, time, and heaven. The brilliant sickle river which was in front of Jian Wushuang was destroyed instantly, and the shocking sword essence continued to wreak havoc by tearing open many holes that were tens of thousands of miles big in the surrounding void. The whole universe was submerged by the shocking sword essence. Swoosh! A figure retreated quickly from the void that the sword essence shrouded. It was His Highness Mu Hong. However, when His Highness Mu Hong just regained his posture, he saw that the void in front of him had collapsed abruptly. After that, an ancient giant finger which contained an earth-shaking power pointed toward him right away. Ancient God's sixth finger, Sun Corrosion. Since Jian Wushuang had already precipitated a total of 88 ultimate divine power water droplets in his body, the amount of divine power in his body was a lot greater than that in the Almighty's. With such a huge amount of divine power, Jian Wushuang was absolutely not worried about its depletion. As such, he could unleash many strong moves and unique skills without the slightest scruple. Break! With a cry, the green god which covered His Highness Mu Hong gave an extremely loud roar. After that, with a violent swing of the sickle on His Highness Mu Hong's hands, fierce winds sprang up and changed into a sickle shadow storm which covered an enormous area. The sickle shadow storm struck the ancient giant finger and both of them turned into dust. However, just then, swish! A ray of golden light which was dragging its long, golden tail like a comet headed toward His Highness Mu Hong quietly. What? His Highness Mu Hong was shocked. It was obvious that the ray of golden light had appeared too abruptly. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Sha's Enmity. Chapter 1704, Sir God Luo Sha's Enmity. Although I was the one who got the white blaze fruit tree, it is extremely useful to lineage of star. I can't exchange a white blaze fruit tree for an opportunity to enter divine pond of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Sir God Luo Sha, is there no other possibility? Another possibility? Yes. Sir God Luo Sha suddenly looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, I read the information recorded on Real God ranking list. It is said that you once injured Sir God Qianlan. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. Sir God Qianlan is an almighty from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Why would he fight with you? Sir God Luo Sha asked. It was because, when I was wandering in the 8th lair, I killed one expert after another from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang briefly shared his story of the 8th lair. Actually, many experts in Eternal Chaotic World knew about the story. However, as Sir God Luo Sha was secluded from the outside world, she never heard about it. He finished the story. In other words, Soaring Heaven King Palace suffered a great loss because of you? Sir God Luo Sha's eyes squinted. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded again. I knew about this as well, Sir God Mad Dog spoke. Soaring Heaven King Palace has been barbaric and they never once suffered. But this time, not only did they suffer a great loss, they were embarrassed. They even became a laughing stock in Eternal Chaotic World. This is because of Jian Wushuang. I see. Sir God Luo Sha looked at Jian Wushuang again, but her gaze was different than before. Jian Wushuang, you can enter Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning and you can stay however long you want, Sir God Luo Sha said. Ha! Jian Wushuang was thrilled with excitement. And the price is? There's no price required. You can just enter. If there's only one condition, it's that after you increase your power, you'll kill that bastard Ling Yun on my behalf. Sir God Luo Sha bellowed as murderous intention soared in her eyes. Bastard Ling Yun? Jian Wushuang was stunned. He didn't even know who he was. Jian Wushuang, that bastard Ling Yun that Sir God Luo Sha was talking about, is the founder of Soaring Heaven King Palace, Emperor God Ling Yun. Soaring Heaven King Palace has 2 emperor gods. Emperor God Ling Yun is the oldest and also the strongest. Compared to Star Palace Master from lineage of Star, he should only be stronger, not weaker. Of course, if Star Palace Master were to perform the secret skill of Star Palace with his all, Emperor God Ling Yun could only run away hastily, Sir God Mad Dog said. Sir God Mad Dog was talking to Jian Wushuang via communication token. Then, Sir God Luo Sha didn't know what they were talking about. Judging from Sir God Luo Sha's look, the rumor should be real. Sir God Mad Dog sighed emotionally. Rumor? What rumor? Jian Wushuang asked. A rumor said that Sir God Luo Sha once had a loving husband, who was also a Sir God expert. The 2 of them were like a celestial couple. But then, somehow or other, her husband was killed by Emperor God Ling Yun. Sir God Luo Sha wanted to take revenge on Soaring Heaven King Palace badly once because of that. However, she was alone. She couldn't cause such a major force like Soaring Heaven King Palace to move, Sir God Mad Dog said. This happened long ago. Plus, Sir God Luo Sha never brought it up herself, so I didn't know if it was true or false. But from what it seems, it should be true. Jian Wushuang, you're lucky, Sir God Mad Dog teased. Jian Wushuang smiled. That was true. He couldn't pay the price that Sir God Luo Sha wanted. He thought he was predestined not to cross paths with Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, but who knew Sir God Luo Sha harbored such deep hatred against Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang had happened to fight against Soaring Heaven King Palace head-on, which had made them suffer great losses and became a laughingstock. It simply meant that he had vented Sir God Luo Sha's grievance. Jian Wushuang, Sir God Luo Sha looked at Jian Wushuang. You made Soaring Heaven King Palace suffer a great loss and they definitely won't let it slip. He had almost no chance to counterattack. Plus, the golden light hit him repeatedly and every hit caused enormous power that shook the divine body. From the continuous hits, he was already injured. If it persisted, he would be killed by Jian Wushuang. If he is here, it'll be impossible for me to get the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. As I can't get it, I can only forcibly destroy it. There was a chilly gleam in His Highness Mu Hong's eyes. He flipped his hand and there were 2 pearls covered in faint black thunder in his hand. His father passed him the 2 pearls. They were specially prepared for the mission that day. Its name was God-Destroying. His father exhorted that if they couldn't take the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning, he should use the 2 God-Destroying pearls to destroy the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. They couldn't get it, and they couldn't let the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning fall into the hands of Sanctuary Alliance. God-Destroying Pearl is powerful. One should be enough to destroy the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning. As for the remaining one, the boundless murderous intention shimmered in His Highness Mu Hong's eyes as he looked at Jian Wushuang directly. He slashed with his green sickle and shot the golden light aiming at him. He retreated, but it happened to be where Jian Wushuang was. Jian Wushuang, die. Then, His Highness Mu Hong extended his palm and 2 black lights burst out at the same time. The 2 black lights, one went towards the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning while the other one aimed at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's eyes fixed. The moment the black light aimed at him, he had already realized something wasn't right, especially as the pearl was letting out faint black thunder. He sensed an extremely terrifying power. The power struck fear into him. Back off. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang retreated swiftly. As he retreated, he pointed with his finger and there was sword light that struck the God-Destroying Pearl like lightning. The God-Destroying Pearl was far away from Jian Wushuang and His Highness Mu Hong intended to throw it before Jian Wushuang. But then, as the sword light hit it, it instantly exploded. Pong! Hong! 2 vigorous explosions roared simultaneously. The noise shook heaven and earth. The power that it brought about could shock every living thing in the universe. Jian Wushuang had already fallen back to somewhere far away, and the explosion of God-destroying pearl didn't affect him. However, whatever happened before his eyes was daunting to him. He knew clearly that he was lucky to escape the explosions of the two pearls. Otherwise, even if he wasn't dead, he would be in a miserable condition. Jian Wushuang's face suddenly changed, and he looked at the divine pond of absolute beginning. The earlier two pearls, one went towards the divine pond of absolute beginning and exploded directly. From the explosion of the pearl, the divine pond of absolute beginning became too horrible to look at. Chapter 1709. Chapter 1709. Kill. Damn it. Upon seeing that more than half of the divine pond of absolute beginning had disappeared due to the attack from the God-destroying pearl and that most of the prohibitions and formations had been destroyed as well, Jian Wushuang's expression turned unusually ugly. You deserve to die. Jian Wushuang was filled with murderous intent. All of a sudden, his body became 10 meters tall and the aura on his body became more than twice as strong. In the space between his eyebrows, there were 6 stars and he had impressive god power. Ancient god's secret skill, thunder attracting skill. Boom! All of a sudden, a giant crack appeared in the quiet sky and a total of 9 giant sacred thunders descended from it. At the same time, the 2 Hongjun golden swords which were floating in the void trembled crazily and headed toward His Highness Mu Hong, one from the left and the other one from the right. Not good. This Jian Wushuang is actually not dead. His Highness Mu Hong's face was filled with fear. In particular, when he saw the 2 Hongjun golden swords which were heading toward him at the same time, he shook with terror. Run! Without any hesitation, His Highness Mu Hong did his best to escape straight away. As for the Sir God-level black battle puppet, he left it behind to block Jian Wushuang. The 9 sacred thunders that descended from the heavens were unable to be aimed at His Highness Mu Hong in time. As such, it could only attack the black battle puppet together with the 2 Hongjun golden swords. In just a short amount of time, the Sir God-level battle puppet was defeated. With a wave of Jian Wushuang's big hands, the damaged battle puppet was put into his Qian Kuan ring. It's impossible for you to run away. Jian Wushuang had an overwhelming amount of murderous intent. As he looked at His Highness Mu Hong, who was still within his line of vision, his body turned vague and a great number of shadows appeared at the same time. With that, his speed achieved his peak instantly. Other than being struck with terror, His Highness Mu Hong was running away with all his might. After just an instant, he had already escaped to the other battlefield. Save me, please save me quickly. Even though His Highness Mu Hong had just arrived at that battlefield, his mad cry for help had already spread. What? The 3 Sir Gods, the gloomy old man, God Qi and God Ba were currently fighting an intense battle with Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog. Moreover, they were in a very advantageous position. However, after hearing the cries for help, the expressions of the 3 of them changed greatly at the same time. The gloomy old man gave up on dealing with Sir God Mad Dog immediately and headed for His Highness Mu Hong right away. Your Highness Mu Hong, what's wrong? The gloomy old man appeared beside His Highness Mu Hong. It's Jian Wushuang. He's hunting me down. His Highness Mu Hong roared repeatedly. The gloomy old man turned his head at once and just happened to see Jian Wushuang, whose face was filled with murderous intent, coming over. Jian Wushuang is actually here as well? The gloomy old man's expression turned grave and he asked straight away, Your Highness, what about the divine pond of absolute beginning? It has been destroyed, His Highness Mu Hong said. That's good, the gloomy old man heaved a sigh of relief. Although they did not manage to snatch the divine pond of absolute beginning away, their mission was considered complete since the divine pond of absolute beginning had been destroyed. We have completed our mission. Stop dealing with them and let's leave quickly, the gloomy old man gave a shrill cry. After that, the 2 Sir Gods, God Qi and God Ba, who were still in combat, retreated immediately. It's not that easy to escape. Sir God Luo Sha's face was filled with madness. At that time, her whole person was within the dense fog, and the dense fog covered a great area of the universe. Moreover, the sword principles, which contained a tremendous amount of extreme hatred, burst forth repeatedly with the intention of keeping the Sir Gods in front back. All of you shall stay here. Similarly, Sir God Mad Dog unleashed an enormous amount of evil aura, and he had already changed into an exotic beast. Moreover, the exotic beast was extremely gigantic. It was more than 100 feet tall, and it had a total of 6 claws. Its frightening murderous intent also covered a humongous area, and it was earth-shaking. Retreat quickly. The gloomy old man and the 3 remaining people absolutely did not have the intention of staying behind and dealing with him. After all, they were Sir God experts, and there was a total of 4 of them. If they really wanted to escape, it would be difficult for Sir God Luo Sha and Sir God Mad Dog to keep them back. However, at that moment, all of you, don't think that any of you can escape. All of a sudden, a voice which was filled with shocking murderous intent and anger resounded across the universe. It was Jian Wushuang who had arrived at the battlefield. His eyes were evil like an enraged ferocious beast, and he was staring at the 4 Sir Gods in front who were preparing to leave persistently. To be more exact, he was staring at His Highness Mu Hong. Anyone could leave. However, His Highness Mu Hong alone had to remain. Even if he could not be captured alive, he had to be killed. It was not just because of the fact that His Highness Mu Hong had destroyed the divine pond of absolute beginning. It was also not because of the fact that His Highness Mu Hong had trampled on him back then in the Blood Demon Church. Instead, it was because His Highness Mu Hong had actually called Lung Rushuelanga. What an intimate way of calling her. Perhaps the person who he had called was Lung Rushue, and it was unrelated to Lung Rushuang, who was Jian Wushuang's wife. Or perhaps Lung Rushue had never paid any attention to His Highness Mu Hong at all. However, His Highness Mu Hong obviously had the intention to get close to Lung Rushue. And the body that Lung Rushue possessed was the body of Lung Rushuang. Anyone who touched the forbidden lamella of a dragon had to die. Lung Rushue was his forbidden lamella. Ancient God's secret skill. Moon-picking skill. Buzz. The void shook. All of a sudden, a peculiar power took effect on the void, and in a split second, rustle, the void collapsed into pieces at a speed that naked eyes could not perceive. At the same time, the power spread toward the 4 Sir Gods, His Highness Mu Hong, the gloomy old man, God Qi, and God Ba. With that, the bodies of the 4 Sir Gods shook, and their eyes revealed a bit of fear at the same time. At that moment, the whole universe, heaven, space, and time headed toward the 4 of them with the intention of crushing them completely into fine powder. It was as if they were being repelled by the universe, space, and time. It was as if they should not have existed in the world. It was too strange. Moreover, the most important thing was that it was impossible to block the attack. The frightening crushing power unleashed its effects straight away. Out of the 4 Sir Gods, His Highness Mu Hong was actually the weakest. After withstanding the repelling power for not long, he spit out a mouthful of blood right away. As for the remaining 3 of them, under the suppression of space and time, their expressions became a lot paler. However, just as the repelling power of space and time was about to dissipate, 2 brilliant rays of golden light lit up abruptly. The places that they lit up were beside His Highness Mu Hong. One was in front while the other one was behind him. Your Highness, please be careful. Upon realizing that, the gloomy old man warned him immediately. However, at such a close distance, even with a warning, it was already too late. His Highness Mu Hong had opened his eyes wide, and he was looking at the rays of golden light in front of him, which were expanding in size continuously. He was totally unable to react, and his mind was completely empty. That was the result of him growing up in a greenhouse. If it were a Sir God who had grown up in the face of terror, he might still be able to react upon seeing the 2 rays of golden light. At the very least, he would be able to unleash some defensive moves. However, His Highness Mu Hong was just a dimwit. At that moment, he was completely stunned, and he did not resist at all. Chapter 1710, Damaged. Chapter 1710, Damaged. Pissed. Pissed. There were 2 rays of golden light. One ray went through His Highness Mu Hong's chest and the other ray pierced through his head. The power contained in the golden light instantly exterminated His Highness Mu Hong's vigor. His Highness Mu Hong stood there like a silly man, but his consciousness had already dispersed. Looking at the sight, the treacherous elders, God Qi and God Ba's, faces grew pale. They knew clearly the identity of His Highness Mu Hong. They also knew of the terrifying existence behind his back. At first, the mission that day was merely for His Highness Mu Hong to have some experience. Because of him, they had even dispatched 3 Sir God experts to safeguard him. On top of that, His Highness Mu Hong had had the war puppet too. There was in total 4 Sir Gods that safeguarded him, and His Highness Mu Hong was a Sir God himself. With such a formation, theoretically, there shouldn't be any accident. But in the end, His Highness Mu Hong had died. In front of them, he was killed. How dare you? Jian Wushuang, just you wait. What happened today won't end so easily. For His Highness Mu Hong's death, someone will look for you and take revenge. The treacherous elderly's roar shook the earth while he brought His Highness Mu Hong's dead body with him and ran away with the other 2 Sir Gods. Jian Wushuang didn't continue to chase after them but watched them leave. The void finally quieted down again. Jian Wushuang, well done. Sir God Mad Dog's voice seemed a little surprised. Wushuang, very impressive, Sir God Luosha said. When the 4 Sir Gods had run away at the same time, although the 2 of them had tried their best, they couldn't make any one of them stay back. But Jian Wushuang had performed a great trick and killed one of them. The person seemed to be the most important person. Jian Wushuang shook his head when he heard what they said. It's a pity that my power is slightly weaker. If my comprehension towards any one of spacetime doctrine and reincarnation doctrine were to break through and pass the 7th level of Doctrine Palace, or if I were to break through and become a stage 3 ultimate real God, I could make all of them stay back. But it's good that I could make one stay. At least we didn't let all them retreat in a complete troop, Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Oh yeah, the divine pond of absolute beginning. Jian Wushuang suddenly spoke. Sir God Luosha's face changed, and she immediately plunged in the direction where the divine pond of absolute beginning was located. Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog followed. When they were near to the divine pond of absolute beginning, Sir God Luosha's face grew pale, but she immediately rushed into the divine pond. Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog stayed in the void above the divine pond as they overlooked the sight below. The 2 of them looked awful too. They could tell that the divine pond of absolute beginning was severely damaged. Not only was more than half of the pond gone, an enormous amount of the power of absolute beginning in the pond was vanishing into thin air as well. At that point, there was about 30% of the power gone and they continued to disperse. It's due to the formation, Sir God Mad Dog explained. I heard from Sir God Sha Luo before that the divine pond of absolute beginning developed and evolved from 1 drop of power of absolute beginning. The evolution of power of absolute beginning is carried out with a unique formation. However, a lot of the formations are damaged and even collapsed. The balance cycle of the divine pond of absolute beginning was interrupted. Not only did the evolvement slow, it was declining. If she doesn't repair the formation in time, the power of absolute beginning will evaporate. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave when he heard that. Very soon, Sir God Luosha plunged out of the divine pond. Sir God Luosha, how is it? Sir God Mad Dog asked closely. At such a crucial moment, he didn't have the mood to make a joke with Sir God Luosha and make fun of her by calling her old witch. A large amount of formations in the divine pond are damaged. Fortunately, the evolution formation merely shattered by half, so there's a possibility to recover it. The core of the divine pond isn't damaged either. I have temporarily steadied the divine pond so that the power of absolute power won't continue to evaporate. However, it is only for temporary. I have to immediately invite experts who are good at formations to come over to recover this, Sir God Luosha said. The damage is so severe? Sir God Mad Dog's voice was low. I have to take the blame. Jian Wushuang blamed himself. The Sir God that I killed was important to me because he most likely knows the whereabouts of my wife. That's why I didn't want to kill him at first and only wanted to capture him alive. But I didn't know. Jian Wushuang did feel very sorry. Sir God Luo Sha didn't need him to pay anything but let him absorb the power of Absolute Beginning in the divine pond of Absolute Beginning. However, due to an unexpected incident, his selfish thought had led to the divine pond of Absolute Beginning being very nearly ruined. One should know that if he were to kill His Highness Mu Hong right at the beginning with his skills, there wouldn't be a scene where the divine pond was damaged. I can understand your feelings. I don't blame you for what happened. Sir God Luo Sha shook her head. She was an emotional person herself. Her husband's death had driven her insane too. Jian Wushuang had also turned irrational because of his wife. Most importantly, Jian Wushuang had never thought His Highness Mu Hong would have two god-destroying pearls that were so powerful. When he responded, it was already too late. He could only take revenge on His Highness Mu Hong and kill him. Jian Wushuang, originally, you could stay as long as you wanted in this divine pond, even until your divine power reached the ultimate achievement. But now, the divine pond is damaged and I have to get someone to fix it immediately. So, for quite a long time, there won't be anyone who enters the divine pond. You will have to wait until the divine pond resumes its normal operation. In short, I can't let you continue to absorb the power of Absolute Beginning, Sir God Luo Sha said. I have gained a great harvest from the divine pond. I, Jian Wushuang, definitely won't forget your favor. As for the rest of the accumulation of divine power, I'll work hard on my own, Jian Wushuang said. Sir God Luo Sha nodded faintly. Oh yeah, you are so well hidden. Even in Sanctuary Alliance, there are less than 10 people who know your whereabouts. How did the people find out where you are? Sir God Mad Dog creased his eyebrows and asked. Who knows? Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace, humph, no one knows the tricks of those two hated parties. Luckily, the two of you happen to be here with me. Otherwise, with me alone, I'm afraid I couldn't save the divine pond, nor would I still be alive, Sir God Luo Sha humphed coldly. Sir God Luo Sha, Sir God Mad Dog sounded very serious. Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace found your location and locked their target at the divine pond of Absolute Beginning. In the near future, you would definitely live in chaos. My advice to you is that you discuss with the few people from Sanctuary Alliance. Sir God Luo Sha squinted her eyes slightly when she heard that. Chapter 1711, Fly into a Rage. Chapter 1711. Fly into a Rage. This was a crimson world. The sky contained a crimson sun. At the center of the crimson world, there was a bloody hole. It was a lofty hall. On the walls of the big hall, there were many gigantic and hideous faces. The eyes of the faces were so sinister and vicious that they made people fearful of them. The three Sir God experts, the gloomy old man, God Chi and God Ba, were in the big hall. However, at present, the three of them no longer had the airs of superiority of a Sir God expert. On the contrary, they were on their knees and bowing down. It was to the extent that they knelt down straight away and they were trembling in fear. There was no other reason. The only reason was that His Highness Mu Hong had died. Died? Honger has actually died? A golden-robed figure was sitting down at the highest position of the big hall. He wore a crimson ghost mask and his looks could not be seen clearly. However, the gloomy, shocking, murderous intent that he was currently releasing had caused the three Sir Gods below to shiver in fear. The mission this time around is not considered too difficult. By my logic, if we were to send two Sir God experts over, as long as they were careful, they would also be able to complete the mission. However, I sent the three of you and Honger there. Do you know why I did that? The strange eyes that the golden-robed figure revealed were looking down at the three people. The three of them was shaking in fear. Of course, they knew the reason why the Lord in front of them had sent them there. It was naturally to protect and assist His Highness Mu Hong. However, in the end, although Honger has died, the three of them survived. The golden-robed figure struck the seat with his hands and an invisible power spread across the area. Puff! Puff! At that moment, the three Sir Gods who were kneeling down in the big hall spit out blood at the same time, and their expressions turned deathly pale immediately. However, such a situation did not cause the three of them to tremble in fear. Instead, they were quite happy. Because they were still alive. "Thank you, Lord, for sparing us," the three of them kowtowed and said gratefully. "If not for now being a critical period and the fact that I lack people, the three of you would have died." An ice-cold voice could be heard from the golden-robed figure. The person who killed Hong'er was that Jian Wushuang. "It's him," the gloomy old man who was kneeling down on the ground continued speaking. "This Jian Wushuang is a lot stronger than what the real God-ranking list has introduced him to be. It is obvious that his abilities have risen again during this short hundreds of years of time, and the current him is probably considered extremely strong among the Sir Gods." Jian Wushuang. When I heard his name last time, it was when his identity as an inverse cultivator was exposed. At that time, he had merely achieved the fighting capabilities of an eternal real god. From then to now, how long has it been? He has actually gotten himself established among the Sir Gods. If we were to give him another period of time, wouldn't I be unable to do anything against him as well? What about the Acheron Palace? Could it be that the Acheron Palace is sitting by and doing nothing? With such a huge threat present, they have still not gotten rid of it. Could it be that they really want to wait for him to become a great emperor who is an extremely high level before taking action? The golden-robed figure was roaring. His voice was so loud that it echoed within the big hall continuously. "Please go and send a message to the Acheron Palace. If the Acheron Palace is really that useless, then they can simply become the Holocaust sect's underling and take orders from us. The Holocaust sect shall then be the one to deal with Jian Wushuang. If the Acheron Palace is still of some use, they had better kill Jian Wushuang while it's still early. I will only give them 1,000 years of time. Within 1,000 years, if Jian Wushuang were to not die, I shall cut the connections between the Holocaust sect and the Acheron Palace." In the dark starry sky, there was a dark land floating about. Many lofty mountains stood tall and upright on the land. The mountains were 1,000,000 feet tall. Even the smallest one was more than 100,000 feet tall. At the center of the mountains, there was a dark divine hall which was floating quietly in the air. Within the vast hall, guards who were covered by dim light were standing tall and upright. Under the eyes of those guards, a black-robed figure came to the big hall and reported some information. "Oh, the son of the Holocaust sect's 7th palace master has died? And he was killed by Jian Wushuang?" A deep, hoarse voice reverberated within the big hall. Although the voice seemed to come from all directions, the speaker had never shown himself. "His son has always been a piece of trash. If he is dead, it means that he has really died." However, the 7th palace master actually unleashed his fury on the Acheron Palace. What a joke! However, this matter has also given us a reminder. Jian Wushuang, his speed of improvement is too fast. Hundreds of years ago, he merely wounded Sir God Qianlan fatally in the 8th layer. However, at that time, Sir God Qianlan did not go all out, nor did he fight with all his might. Comparing abilities, he was not weaker than Jian Wushuang. However, now, in just a short few hundreds of years, he killed a Sir God. Moreover, he killed the Sir God while he was under the protection of 3 Sir Gods. With such a fast speed of improvement, if the Acheron Palace wishes to kill him, it will soon be too late. Looks like we can no longer place our hopes on the soaring Heaven King Palace. We have to be the ones to do it ourselves. Moreover, we have to do it immediately. The Acheron Palace had always been hidden extremely deeply within the darkness, and they would not take action easily. Moreover, they would not take action unless there was a need to. Previously, they had thought that since Jian Wushuang was fighting with the Soaring Heaven King Palace, they would leave them to continue fighting and let the Soaring Heaven King Palace kill Jian Wushuang. However, at that time, they had to do it themselves. Devise a plan to assassinate Jian Wushuang immediately. Moreover, for the devised plan, there must be more than a 90% chance of assassinating him successfully. Within 1,000 years, we must complete the assassination of Jian Wushuang. The Acheron Palace will not allow such a top genius to continue living even for another 1,000 years. The hoarse, deep voice ordered. All right. The respectful black-robed man who was awaiting his orders nodded his head. After that, he started to make preparations. The Acheron Palace was definitely a dark powerhouse that the Sanctuary Alliance was most worried about. Its level of threat was even higher than that of the Holocaust sect. After all, although the Holocaust sect was evil and they would massacre wantonly, the people who they massacred were mostly weaklings. However, the Acheron Palace focused on assassinating higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance as well as geniuses. Furthermore, as soon as the Acheron Palace set themselves to killing a person and devised an assassination plan in detail, the probability of the expert surviving the assassination would definitely be less than 10%. At that moment, the Acheron Palace had started to devise the assassination plan to assassinate Jian Wushuang. As for Jian Wushuang, he was completely clueless about it. He knew that the talents and potential that he had revealed would definitely attract the attention of some dark powerhouses. However, he did not know that the dark powerhouses would think so highly of him. Moreover, he did not have a very good understanding of the techniques and abilities of the dark powerhouses. However, as he had made ample preparations and was vigilant, he was not that afraid of them. Chapter 1712 Tai Ching Ancient Panacea. Chapter 1712 Tai Ching Ancient Panacea. Jian Wushuang and Sir God Mad Dog left Sir God Luosha's. As for Sir God Luosha, she had already informed the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. There would definitely be a negotiation and trade between her and the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance. In short, Sir God Luosha definitely wouldn't continue to occupy Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning alone. Jian Wushuang, you have stayed in Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning for at least 10 years. How did it go? Sir God Mad Dog asked casually. Not bad. Jian Wushuang smiled, but there was a tinge of regret in his heart. He really regretted it. If he were to be given another 2 to 3 years, the ultimate divine power in his body would reach his extreme limit and he could finally break through and become Stage 3 Ultimate Real God. It was a pity because the Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning was severely damaged and he couldn't continue to absorb the power. How much more divine power do you need to accumulate for you reach your extreme limit? Sir God Mad Dog seemed to be asking casually. Not much, but if I were to have to accumulate it slowly on my own, it should require another 10 of thousands of years, Jian Wushuang said. So long more. Sir God Mad Dog squinted his eyes. He thought for a while and finally made a decision. Boy, as you are quite polite to me, I shall share something with you. Something? Jian Wushuang was confused. You should know that I have been staying in Thunderbolt Island all this while, but I suddenly left Thunderbolt Island and headed to Holy Kingdom of Dark Light. There definitely must be a reason, Sir God Mad Dog said. Not long ago, I received news. In Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, someone who found Sir God Dan Hong's cave dwelling. Sir God Dan Hong is an ancient Sir God and he passed away long ago. As for how he died, no one knows. It is said that although Sir God Dan Hong wasn't powerful and he was on the bottom of the list, the elixirs that he refined are extraordinary. He is known to be extremely capable in elixir making, which is hard to come by in eternal chaotic world. He once refined many kinds of high-level elixirs and some of the elixirs are extremely useful to Sir Gods. He also once refined an extremely unique elixir called Tai Ching Ancient Panacea. It is a very unique elixir and only he could refine it. It contained a shocking amount of divine power. It is said that a Sir God that exhausted his divine power could recover to his peak in a short period of time if he consumed a Tai Ching Ancient Panacea. Even an Emperor God could at least recover half of his divine power after taking the elixir. Jian Wushuang's eyes shimmered with joy when he heard that. If Tai Ching Ancient Panacea contains such a shocking amount of divine power, it should be quite useful to those Sir Gods and Emperor Gods. If they were to run into trouble, it would be extremely useful. To Jian Wushuang, Taiching Ancient Panacea contains such boundless divine power and he could absorb it directly. In Eternal Chaotic World, there is a variety of elixirs that contains pure divine power. However, one that contains such shockingly high amount of divine power, there aren't many besides Taiching Ancient Panacea. Even if there is, they are extremely rare. One who couldn't play a certain kind of trick wouldn't be able to get them. Jian Wushuang nodded faintly as he understood that too. Previously, it was not that he had never considered precipitating his ultimate divine power droplet via consumption of elixir that contained pure divine power, it was just that the elixirs were extremely pricey and also, the divine power that they contained was nothing compared to the 100 drops of ultimate divine power droplet. To rely entirely on elixir or natural treasure for him to accumulate divine power to his extreme limit, even lineage of star couldn't afford the price. Hence, he had come to the divine pond of absolute beginning. Because such elixirs are too rare and too precious, Sir God Dan Hong's cave dwelling is extremely attractive. After all, Sir God Dan Hong might have left a lot of elixirs in his cave dwelling. There might even be some Taiching Ancient Panaceas. Sir God Mad Dog smiled. When the news spread, it attracted the attention of many almighties in Sanctuary Alliance. However, it's a pity that Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu is Sir God Lu Yin's territory. Sir God Lu Yin isn't weak among Sir Gods. He also has a high position in Sanctuary Alliance. He came out personally and took action for the almighties in Sanctuary Alliance to give up the idea. They gave up, but I didn't. I still want to try the taste of Taiching Ancient Panacea. So, I came out from Thunderbolt Island to go to Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. Who knew I would run into you and bring you to Divine Pond of Absolute Beginning? So what happened to Sir God Dan Hong's cave dwelling? Jian Wushuang asked. It's interesting, Sir God Mad Dog smiled. I received news saying there are many elixirs left in Sir God Dan Hong's cave dwelling and more than 90% of the elixirs went to Sir God Lu Yin. However, somehow or other, the most important Taiching Ancient Panacea among all elixirs, of which there is a total of 9, fell into the hands of a universe god. Universe god? Jian Wushuang was astonished. Something that an almighty was eyeing fell into the hands of a universe god. Was this a joke? I don't know what happened exactly, but Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu is in chaos. There are many people who are looking for the universe god, but they have yet to find even now. Sir God Mad Dog smiled. Jian Wushuang, as you need to accumulate divine power, the 9 Taiching Ancient Panaceas should be helpful to you. Of course, you must first figure out a way to get the 9 Taiching Ancient Panaceas. Thank you, Sir God Mad Dog, for telling me. I shall depart to Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu now, Jian Wushuang said. Go ahead. It's not too far from here to Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. If you were to rush over now, you should be able to get there in time. Sir God Mad Dog waved his hand. He himself wasn't interested in Taiching Ancient Panacea anymore. After all, he only wanted to eat Taiching Ancient Panacea and to try the taste of it. It wasn't like he needed it. However, it was different for Jian Wushuang. When Jian Wushuang found out about Taiching Ancient Panacea, he immediately went to Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. He was really interested with Taiching Ancient Panacea. After all, the divine power contained in Taiching Ancient Panacea was shockingly enormous. It was extremely useful to his accumulation of divine power, and there were 9 of them. If he could get the 9 Taiching Ancient Panaceas and consume them, he reckoned that even if the divine power in his body couldn't reach its extreme limit, it shouldn't be too far away from precipitating the 100 ultimate divine power droplets. Jian Wushuang hurried his journey at his maximum speed in the spaceship. He merely used a dozen years' time before he arrived at Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. Chapter 1713, Yuming Pub. Chapter 1713, Yuming Pub. In the eternal chaotic world, gaps exist between different border areas as well as between different holy kingdoms. Some holy kingdoms were powerful, while some holy kingdoms were weak. For example, The Snow Kingdom that Jian Wushuang first set foot in when he came to the eternal chaotic world was extremely far away from the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, and it belonged to one of the very remote holy kingdoms. Moreover, it was also an extremely weak holy kingdom that did not have many real gods. However, the holy kingdom of real Wushu was absolutely an extremely powerful holy kingdom. Moreover, the holy kingdom of real Wushu and the 16 others surrounding holy kingdoms were all under an almighty. This almighty was known as Sir God Lu Yin. The Yuming Mountain was a famous mountain range in the holy kingdom of real Wushu. The mountain range was famous for its fighting prowess, not because of the fact that impressive experts had appeared from it or because some powerhouses were present. It was because of the fact that the mountain range was the biggest place in the holy kingdom of real Wushu where most bandits were concentrated in. The Yuming Mountain stretched across hundreds of millions of miles, and there were more than 1,000 million bandits in it. Among those bandits, there were powerful ones as well as weak ones. The weak ones were normal heaven masters, while the average ones were universe gods, which were great in number. In addition, there was quite a number of real gods within the mountain range. Due to the bandits running wild, the mountain range had a very bad name. On normal days, if there was no need to, many of the cultivators in the holy kingdom of real Wushu would absolutely not choose to go into the Yuming Mountain. However, ever since more than 10 years ago, where the universe god known as Hishio escaped into the Yuming Mountain had become extremely lively. Hishio was the universe god who possessed the 9 Taiching ancient panaceas. As soon as he escaped into the Yuming Mountain, many experts who had cast their greedy eyes on his 9 Taiching ancient panacea came to the Yuming Mountain and started to search for him crazily. It should be known that there were too many cultivators who had cast their eyes on the 9 Taiching ancient panaceas. Moreover, most of them were experts. This also included many powerhouses and sects of the holy kingdom of real Wushu, as well as the surrounding 16 holy kingdoms. The number of cultivators was uncountable. With so many experts of the powerhouses and sects going into the Yuming Mountain, the bandits within the Yuming Mountain were totally unable to hold their ground against them. Hence, they were naturally affected. However, it was not easy to find a universe god within thousands of millions of bandits. Hence, to date, after more than tens of years had passed, no one had found Hishio yet. At a spacious main road which was near the center region of the Yuming Mountain, there was an exquisite pub, and it was called the Yuming Pub. The pub was only built recently, and it was a rest area specially built for the experts who were looking for Hishio in the mountain range. In addition, much information regarding the Hongming Mountain was also exchanged in the pub. For example, if a universe god who looked like Hishio were to appear somewhere in the Hongming Mountain or within any group of bandits, the pub would make this information public immediately. For such a kind of pub, they could be found in each and every corner of the Hongming Mountain. Just then, this pub was extremely lively, and there were at least hundreds of cultivators talking wantonly. Some of them were drinking wine and chatting, while some of them were exchanging information. Swoosh! All of a sudden, a blood-robed youth who was carrying a sword landed in the open space outside the pub. After that, he suppressed his aura and entered the pub slowly. "This Mr. over here, may I know what you need?" a green-clothed young lady behind the counter asked. "Give me detailed information regarding Hishio as well as what has happened in the Hongming Mountain in this period of time. Also, give me a bottle of wine," Jian Wushuang said. "No problem, but I will require you to pay 200,000 divine gems," the green-clothed young lady said. 200,000 divine gems were equivalent to all the possessions of a weak universe god. However, to Jian Wushuang, it was too little to make a difference. At present, his social status was that of an almighty. For the 100,000 doctrine gems which he had obtained from the soaring Heaven King Palace, one of them was equivalent to hundreds of millions of divine gems. The green-clothed young lady gave the report to Jian Wushuang. After receiving it, Jian Wushuang found a random seat within the pub and sat down. After that, he started to browse through the report. Many cultivators within the pub knew that Jian Wushuang had come for Hishio. However, they were not too concerned about him. After all of them had come for Hishio as well. Moreover, as Jian Wushuang had suppressed his aura, they were unable to tell how strong Jian Wushuang was, and they treated him like a universe god who was similar to them. Little did they imagine that the person who was sitting with them was a super existence who would be able to make the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu shiver with fear with a stomp of his foot. Oh, no wonder a universe god like He Xie can obtain the 9 Taiching ancient panaceas. So it's like that. As Jian Wushuang looked at the report in his hands, he shook his head. The main reason could be explained in one word: greed. It was not He Xiu who was greedy. Instead, it was the elders of He Xiu. According to the report, He Xiu was born into the He family, which was a big family in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. The He family had always been cordial to the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. Moreover, in the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, it was definitely a big powerhouse that could get into the top 5 among the powerhouses of the Holy Kingdom. Back then, when Sir God Danhong's cave was discovered within the Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, as the cave was too huge and it contained many mazes, it naturally required a huge number of experts to explore it. Hence, the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu sent many experts under him to explore the cave. These experts included many experts from the He family, and even He Xiu's father was included. After searching the cave inside out, quite a number of experts under the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu had died, but many of the elixirs that were left behind by Sir God Danhong were retrieved in the end. However, it was a pity that among the elixirs that were retrieved, the Taiching ancient panacea was not present. Against that, the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, as well as the almighty Sir God Lu Yin who was behind him, could not do anything, and they could only assume that Sir God Danhong had not left any Taiching ancient panaceas behind. After all the elixirs that he had left behind were only discovered at the very end, and they were inside 3 Chen-Kuan rings. As such, no one could steal anything secretly. Hence, this matter was about to come to an end. However, who could have known that the experts who were exploring Sir God Danhong's cave would unintentionally discover a secret room at the very end? Moreover, it should be known that the secret room originally contained an opportunity as well as a total of 9 Taiching ancient panaceas. However, when the secret room was discovered, the opportunity and the 9 Taiching ancient panaceas had already disappeared. This meant that among the experts under the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, someone had obtained the opportunity and the 9 Taiching ancient panaceas. However, they hid them quietly and did not turn them over. Sir God Lu Yin then became furious. At the same time, the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu was also enraged, and both of them started to investigate. With the investigation, they found their way to the He family. It was an expert of the He family. Moreover, it was He Xiu's father who obtained the opportunity and Taiching ancient panacea in the secret room by coincidence. However, due to his greed where he wanted them for himself, he invited a great disaster to the He family and caused it to be destroyed. Chapter 1714 Alike? Chapter 1714 Alike. He Xiu is quite pitiful. Jian Wushuang shook his head and sighed. According to the information, He Xiu was the top genius of the young generation in He family. Not only was he talented, his mental state was terrifyingly strong. He had extremely great potential. However, after the news of him privately possessing opportunity and Taiching ancient panacea spread, He Xiu suffered the calamity of his family being exterminated. Almost the entire He family was killed. Only he managed to escape along with the opportunity and Taiching ancient panacea. Then he ran into Yuming Mountain and countless experts chased after him. He was originally a god's favored one, but he was being hunted. He Xiu was of course pitiful. Although he was pitiful, Jian Wushuang wouldn't pity him at all. After all, he was one of those who were chasing after He Xiu. In the pub, Jian Wushuang was drinking alone. At the same time, he continued to flip through the information. Then a dozen figures came into the pub from outside. These people let their auras spread wantonly. All of them were peak universe gods in the third heaven. Among their leader, a brown-haired man, was already a void real god. One should know that they were only in one of the holy kingdoms, not a place like the 10 sanctuaries. A real god leading a dozen of peak universe gods in the third heaven, such a troop was terrifying enough. These people are from Ling family. Ling family? The originally noisy pub instantly went quiet. Everyone in the pub was looking at the dozens of people from Ling family who had just walked it. Most of them had fear in their eyes. Ling family? Jian Wushuang took a glance at the people. From the information that he had just read, Ling family was like the He family that was exterminated. They were both big families in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, but they were slightly more powerful than He family. However, Jian Wushuang couldn't even be bothered by the king of Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, let alone Ling family. With a simple glance, Jian Wushuang continued to drink while he read the information on hand. The few of you, go away. The brown-haired man, who was the leader of the people from Ling family, looked at the few cultivators at the table before him and pressed over with his real god aura. The few warriors' faces grew pale from the pressure and they immediately gave their table up with hesitation. The brown-haired man sat at the table and there was someone who poured him a drink immediately. Humph, he xiu, that bastard, he is so well hidden. It has been over 10 years and we have yet to find him, the brown-haired man roared without any cover-up. Ling family and He family were the two strongest families in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. They were normally sworn enemies. Then, as He family was in trouble, Ling family was, of course, the happiest party. Ling family was also the most hard-working party that was chasing after He xiu from He family. The brown-haired man was burning with rage. He chugged his drink and looked around him. Looking at the gaze of the brown-haired man, everyone in the pub lowered their heads. Only Jian Wushuang was still flipping through the information in his hand. Huh! The brown-haired man's gaze stopped at Jian Wushuang. This person? It wasn't because Jian Wushuang didn't lower his head that he noticed Jian Wushuang, but because of Jian Wushuang's attire. The brown-haired man flipped his hand and there was a copy of the information in his hand. He was from Ling family and Ling family knew He family the best. He was also very familiar with He xiu. Hence, the copy of the information about He xiu that he had was in much more in detail than the one provided by Yuming Pub. Crimson robe, carrying a sword on his back. Back when He xiu was wandering, he dressed in a crimson robe and carried a sword on his back, exactly like this person before me. Both of their features look very young too. The brown-haired man fixed his gaze. He had never seen He xiu before, nor did he have He xiu's portrait, but he knew He xiu's attire. He xiu was good with a sword and he was crazy about swords. So, he always carried a sword on his back. You saw He xiu once. Is it this person? The brown-haired man looked to a universe god from Ling family next to him and asked. Misted, when I saw He xiu back then, I only saw him from afar. I didn't see his facial features. But in terms of body shape and attire, the two of them are quite similar. But He xiu is running for his life. He wouldn't come to Yuming Pub like an idiot and not bother to disguise himself. The universe god from Ling family said. Humph, we will find out if it is him when we question him, the brown-haired man humped coldly. He looked at Jian Wushuang with a sharp glare. Young man, come here. As he humphed, his real god-level pressure pressed onto Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang continued to flip through the information in his hand, but he glanced at the brown-haired man. You'd better not provoke me. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Ha! In Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu, who has the capability to make Ling family regretful? This is such a joke. Young man, you'd better take out your Qian Kuan ring for me to check. Otherwise, I will kill you and check your Qian Kuan ring after. The brown-haired man scoffed, but it was doubtlessly a commanding tone. The universe gods from Ling family who stood behind him were smirking coldly too. Then, Jian Wushuang didn't speak anymore but extended his finger slowly and pointed in the direction of the brown-haired man. Virum. A shapeless sword in tension swept out. The sword shadow looked weak and didn't seem to be powerful at all. But when it appeared, it instantly flew before the brown-haired man. The brown-haired man was still smiling, but there was a sudden shock in his eyes. The sword shadow flew past his body, then through the universe gods' bodies behind him. Then, the sword shadow quivered and dispersed. Jian Wushuang reined back his palm and raised his glass to take a sip. In this world there are so many idiots. Even though he is already a real god, Jian Wushuang muttered and remained at ease. The cultivators from Ling family, their bodies stiffened on the spot and then fell one after another. Then, there was not a squeak but only blood that constantly flowed out from their wounds. Every cultivator in the pub saw the scene and their faces grew pale. They looked at Jian Wushuang with an unprecedentedly terrified look. Real God was an absolute superb expert in Holy Kingdom of Real Wushu. However, a superb expert was just like an ant when he was killed by the person before their eyes so casually. Such power. These people immediately understood that the young man in the crimson robe who was sitting alone while he read the information was truly a top expert. He was at least the level of an eternal real God, or even higher. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.